Chapter 6698. After a while, Yang Qinxue said, "There's no need to rush. You'll know after you treat him. If you can't, then forget it." Looking at the two of them, Hong Zhuang understood that they didn't want to talk about this matter, so he didn't ask any further. After all, he had to help with the treatment after it was over. When the time came, he would naturally understand everything. During the banquet, other than Xiao He and Xiao Bai, who were eating happily, Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others were thinking about the treatment. In this absent-minded situation, the banquet ended very quickly. Not long after, Bai Qingli came to invite Bailey Hong Zhuang to the guest room. "Miss Bailey, come with me to the treatment." Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded slightly and immediately followed behind Bai Qingli. Di Beichen and the others didn't leave either. When Bai Qingli noticed this scene, she couldn't help but say, "Young Master Di, why don't you rest in this garden for a while and leave together after Miss Bailey is done?" To tell you the truth, Yang Lingfeng's condition has always been a secret. He is, after all, the son of the city lord. If someone were to find out about it, it would inevitably cause some trouble. I hope you can forgive him. Hearing this, Di Beichen and the others understood. "Then we'll wait here. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her." Bai Qingli said this to Di Beichen. Following behind Bai Qingli, Bailey Hong Zhuang walked all the way into the city lord's mansion. The city lord's mansion was really huge. The place where they were at the banquet was only a corner of it. It wasn't until they arrived at their destination that Bailey Hong Zhuang noticed that Bai Luchuan was still here. From the looks of it, he had to see the results today before he gave up. "Miss Bailey is here." A cold glint appeared in Bai Luchuan's eyes. He had offended two elders today in order to completely drag down Bailey Hong Zhuang. The so-called godly doctor was just an undeserved reputation. Lingfeng's illness has been going on for quite some time. He's seen many doctors, but none of them can cure him. Everyone says that you're the #1 alchemist in Shiyin City. I hope he can cure his illness. That would be great. Bai Luchuan revealed a look of concern. Although his words of concern landed in Bailey Hong Zhuang's ears, it clearly didn't mean that. This guy is trying to kill me with excessive praise. "Miss Bailey, please come in." Yang Han didn't intend to waste too much time. He opened the door and said. Bailey Hong Zhuang bowed slightly and walked into the room. After seeing Bailey Hong Zhuang, Yang Lingfeng's face was a little ugly, a bit uneasy. He really didn't want to, but today's matter had come to this point. There had to be an outcome. It was just that his illness. Facing such a peerless beauty, it was really difficult to talk about it. After Bailey Hong Zhuang noticed Yang Lingfeng's expression, she vaguely had some guesses in her heart. Looking at Yang Lingfeng's masculine appearance, it really didn't seem like it. "Young Master Yang, I'm Bailey Hong Zhuang." She slowly walked to the side and sat down before continuing. "I'm here to treat you. No matter what the situation is, you can tell me. As a doctor, you can rest assured of the most basic confidentiality. You don't have to worry about it. As a doctor, there is no gender distinction." Chapter 6699. Outside the house, Yang Han and the others also had worried looks on their faces. "Father, I believe that Lingfeng's problem will definitely be cured." Yang Qinxue naturally understood her father's worries. Didn't Apothecary Wei say that Miss Bailey's understanding of medicine is different from many apothecaries? She has a brand new line of thought that even Apothecary Wei was shocked. Perhaps with her help, this situation can really be resolved. Bai Luchuan was worried that no one would help raise Bailey Hong Zhuang's status. Now that he heard Yang Qinxue say that, he immediately said with a smile, "Isn't that so? Miss Bailey's attainments in this area have never been simple. I believe in her." Yang Han glanced at Bai Luchuan indifferently. If it wasn't for Bai Ziyuan, he would have long chased this fellow out. Lingfeng's problem indeed needs to be resolved as soon as possible. If a good young man like him were to develop an inferiority complex because of this problem, I'm afraid it will be troublesome in the long run. Bai Ziyuan's voice was slightly heavy. To any man, this problem was very difficult to speak of. However, it would be even worse if he were to hide his illness for fear of treatment. Yang Han sighed. How could he not know this? Stealing face after such a long time, he could clearly sense that Ling Feng was becoming more and more taciturn. In the past, he was a rather sunny kid, but now, he only liked to be alone. Previously, a few apothecaries said that as long as we find the medical poison sage, Granny Hua, she can cure Ling Feng's illness. Unfortunately, this Granny Hua has disappeared for many years. No one knows where she went. Even though I've sent many people to inquire, there's no news at all. The medical poison sage, Granny Hua's medical skills and poison skills are top-notch. No one can compare to her. However, her temper is somewhat strange. Even if we know where she is, it's very difficult to ask her for help. However, since a few years ago, she has never appeared in front of the world again. She must have hidden herself from the world. Bai Ziyuan's gaze was complicated. Once such an expert hid herself from the world, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to find her. I'll give it a try today. I feel that Miss Bailey's medical skills are indeed very exquisite. Bai Qingli was filled with confidence in Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. However, in this aspect, he really didn't believe it. After all, a girl probably wouldn't study this aspect. Jiyu, who loves his wife, till the Yendi, when Bailey Hongzhuang found out that Yang Lingfeng really had erectile dysfunction, she couldn't help but feel a little confused. According to her observations, Yang Lingfeng didn't look like it. Young Master Yang, when did this matter begin? Bailey Hongzhuang looked serious. Although she was not good at this, as a doctor, she naturally knew a little about it. It started when I went out to train 5 years ago and saw a girl being humiliated. Yang Lingfeng's expression was unsightly. He clearly didn't want to recall the scenes from back then. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood a little. This was not a physical illness, but a psychological one. No wonder she could not feel anything from his face. Young Master Yang, is it because this matter has affected you too much that you're acting like this? Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. If that's the reason, then you have to overcome your psychological barrier. Chapter 6700. Are you sure you've really overcome it? Many people hypnotize themselves into thinking that they've overcome it, but in reality, deep down, they're still the same. They can't be shaken at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was serious. She once heard from her mother-in-law that psychological problems were the most difficult to solve because external influences were very small. One could only rely on oneself. Yang Lingfeng was originally very repulsed by female pharmacists. Even when his father agreed in front of so many people just now, he did not refuse because he wanted to save his father's face. But at this moment, looking at the serious and meticulous manner of the woman in front of him, the trace of hostility in his heart dissipated. Because from the beginning to the end, she did not show the slightest bit of ridicule. On the contrary, she had been very carefully thinking about the problem. I'm sure I've overcome it. Yang Lingfeng nodded. When I went out for training, it was my first time out. Usually, I've always been cultivating in the city lord's manner, so I've never experienced such a scene. So I was deeply shocked and somewhat depressed. But all these years, I've been exposed to a lot of things when I went out for training. I understand the cruelty between cultivators. Although this kind of thing doesn't happen often, many people might have experienced it before. I've deliberately experienced a lot of things because of this problem. My mentality also went from being nervous at the beginning to being calm later on. Listening to the man's steady narration, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. Everything he said did not seem to be forcing himself. Instead, it was from the bottom of his heart that he had gradually adapted to all of this. Perhaps he had not completely let go of that matter, but it was already a lot better. Logically speaking, if you're gradually getting better, you should show it physiologically. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. Yang Lingfeng smiled faintly. All these years, many pharmacists have treated me. Regarding this problem, they also couldn't understand it. Miss, if you don't understand, you don't have to worry. Maybe I haven't completely overcome it. Looking at the man's faint smile, Bailey Hongzhuang's impression of him changed. Originally, she only thought of him as a person with a strange temperament and did not like to talk much. But when he smiled, it was filled with a kind of spring breeze-like warmth. Thinking about it, before this incident, he must have been an optimistic and cheerful person. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully checked his pulse. His pulse was calm and steady, and it didn't seem like there was any problem. She had been a doctor for so long. but it was rare for her to encounter such a problem where she could not find any clues. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to withdraw her hand and confirm that it was a psychological problem, there was suddenly an abnormal beat in her steady pulse. Noticing this, her expression couldn't help but change slightly for a moment, and the hand that was about to withdraw tightened again. When Yang Lingfeng saw the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, he was also a little surprised. He maintained his original position and did not move. As time passed, Bailey Hongzhuang kept feeling Yang Lingfeng's pulse. At that moment, she had clearly noticed an abnormal heartbeat, but when she continued to take his pulse, it disappeared again. It was as if her previous discovery was simply an illusion. However, she was certain that that moment was not an illusion. It truly existed. Chapter 6701. Miss Bailey, what are you? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had not moved an inch, Yang Lingfeng felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward and could not help but ask. However, Bailey Hongzhuang only shook her head slightly, indicating that he should not speak. This minute change was not obvious and needed to be carefully observed. Yang Lingfeng also kept his mouth shut, but his heart was filled with anticipation. Could it be that she had discovered something? After waiting for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang finally felt that abnormal pulse, and her eyes lit up. She seemed to have discovered a problem. If it wasn't for the fact that she happened to run into this opportunity, she might have really missed it. This pulse was too subtle and would not have been discovered if one did not pay attention. Master Yang, 5 years ago, other than the scene that you saw with your own eyes, did anything else happen? Hearing this question, Yang Lingfeng's eyes flashed with a trace of suspicion. When this happened that year, I was also poisoned, but after Brother Qing Li and the others arrived, my poison was quickly cured. After that, nothing else happened in the years of training. Did you discover something? You were poisoned? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. What kind of poison was it? That poison was very strange. According to the person who poisoned me, this poison was very powerful. However, although I was poisoned, it did not take much effort to cure the poison, so I always thought that he was just talking nonsense and was just bluffing. Yang Lingfeng's face was calm, obviously disdainful of the man's words. This poison, I'm afraid there is indeed something strange about it. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows revealed a trace of thought. She didn't think about it before, so she didn't pay too much attention to it. At this moment, after discovering this clue, she carefully studied it and found the problem. Yang Lingfeng's expression changed. You're saying that the reason why I am like this is not because of the psychological problem, but because of the poison? None of the pharmacists had ever mentioned this before, and this thought shocked him greatly. If it was really because of the poison, then as long as the poison was cured, would he be able to recover? This problem has been in your body for a full 5 years, but it hasn't been discovered. Either the poison itself isn't very destructive, but the other party clearly said that this poison isn't simple, so it's very likely that this poison is a slow-acting poison. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression became serious. If this was the case, then everything had become complicated. This slow-acting poison often did not seem like much in the short term, but after a long time, it would penetrate deep into the internal organs and could cause death. Although Yang Lingfeng was not a pharmacist, he had seen many pharmacists over the years and had some understanding of the situation. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang did not say it, he knew the power of this slow-acting poison. All these years, this slow-acting poison for such a long time. Yang Lingfeng still couldn't believe it. Slow-acting poisons did exist, but it was rare to see one that could last for such a long time. Chapter 6702. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yang Lingfeng's expression changed abruptly, as if he had recalled something. Seeing the change in the man's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask, "Have you recalled something?" Back then, I had said that the poison was very serious, and that ordinary antidote pills would not have any effect at all. Therefore, the antidote pills that they had brought out were of extremely high quality. It was said that this antidote pill seemed to be the antidote pill that the saint of medicine and poison, Granny Hua, had once sold. My father and the others had bought it at a high price. Granny Hua, Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She had not expected to hear Granny Hua's name again today. It seemed that Granny Hua's name was really resounding. Yang Lingfeng nodded slightly. Granny Hua's medical and poison skills can be said to be top-notch. Don't look at how Medicine Master Wei and the others' medical skills are not bad. They can't be compared to Granny Hua at all. All along, the pills that Granny Hua refined were hard to come by. However, Granny Hua had not appeared for a long time. Everyone said that as long as we could find Granny Hua, my problem would be easily solved. It's a pity that Granny Hua is nowhere to be found now. Bailey Hongzhuang heard this, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. It was true that they could not find Granny Hua now. However, the person in front of them was Granny Hua's disciple. Flourishing Age's favorite concubine. The demonic emperor takes advantage. Are you sure that other than some problems in this area, you don't feel any other discomfort? Bailey Hongzhuang confirmed once again. She had to understand the situation clearly before she could prescribe the right medicine. Yang Lingfeng nodded affirmatively. That's right. I'll take some of your blood first and study it when we get back. All right. The blood was bright red, and they could not see any problems. This was also within their expectations. It was only when Bailey Hongzhuang and Yang Lingfeng walked out of the room together that everyone came forward to welcome them. Miss Bailey, how is the diagnosis and treatment this time? Is there a way to treat Lingfeng's condition? Facing everyone's concerned gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, I need to go back and study it before I tell you. Hearing this, everyone frowned. Yang Lingfeng was here. Was he going to study? Yang Han was a little disappointed. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang was unable to diagnose and treat him, so she made such an excuse. When she returned, would they still pursue the matter? Medical Garden, there was a sneer in the depths of Bai Liuchuan's eyes. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't tell it all. She was just deliberately mystifying things. I thought that Miss Bailey's medical skills were outstanding and that she would definitely have a solution. I didn't expect that I would disappoint Uncle Yang. I'm really sorry. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bai Liuchuan indifferently, but didn't say anything. You can't casually spread this matter. You must keep it a secret. Otherwise, once this news is known by others, Bai Liuchuan's expression turned sinister. He had long planned that after the woman returned, he would send people to spread the news near her residence. Once such a matter was spread, City Lord Yang and company would definitely lose face. When the time came, they would vent their anger on Bailey Hongzhuang. Then, don't worry. A doctor is benevolent. I definitely won't tell anyone. Chapter 6703. Bai Liuchuan looked at Yang Lingfeng in astonishment. He had only gone in for treatment, but his attitude had immediately changed. If he didn't know that Yang Lingfeng was powerless, he would have thought that something had happened. This change was too fast. That's right. It's not like Miss Bailey owes us anything. She's willing to help treat us, so we should thank her properly. Yang Qinxue couldn't stand it any longer. Indeed, she didn't know what conflict there was between Bai Liuchuan and Bailey Hongzhuang, but it was too much for a man to target a woman. Bai Liuchuan couldn't help but feel anxious when he saw everyone glaring at him. Immediately, he resented Bailey Hongzhuang even more. That's not what I meant. I'm just worried that this news will affect Lingfeng if it gets out. Don't worry. I believe in Miss Bailey's character. Yang Lingfeng glanced at Bai Liuchuan. If this news really gets out, it must be someone else's doing. Bai Liuchuan's heart palpitated. Yang Lingfeng was clearly referring to him. Lingfeng, I'm doing this for you. How can you target me like this? Yang Lingfeng couldn't be bothered. Miss Bailey's medical skills are indeed superb. She discovered that my illness might not be as simple as a psychological problem. The moment that was said, everyone present was taken aback. Yang Han took a few steps forward. Lingfeng, what do you mean? Upon seeing this, Yang Lingfeng looked apologetically at Bailey Hongzhuang. He understood her thoughts. She wanted to wait until she was certain before telling everyone to prevent them from having unnecessary expectations. However, Bai Liuchuan was too much. He couldn't stand it any longer. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, indicating that she wasn't unhappy. Miss Bailey said that the reason why I'm like this might be because there's still poison in my body. Yang Han turned his head when he heard that. Miss, what do you mean? When I was taking young Master Yang's pulse, I realized that his pulse would fluctuate slightly every once in a while. This is a hidden problem. However, I've already taken the antidote back then, and it's been so long. I need some time to be sure. Yang Han's expression changed as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a hint of surprise. He didn't know that there was such a thing. If that was the case, then everything would be solved as long as the poison was removed. Then I'll have to trouble Miss Bailey. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I'll do my best. Bai Ziwan looked at Apothecary Wei and said, Apothecary Wei, did you notice this when you took Ling Feng's pulse? Apothecary Wei shook his head slightly. This old man is puzzled. I didn't notice it when I took your pulse earlier. Miss Bailey, can you tell me how you noticed it? Ever since their conversation, Apothecary Wei knew that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't someone who liked to play to the gallery. Since what she said was true, why didn't he notice it when he was taking her pulse? Medicine Master Wei, young Master Yang's abnormality can only be detected once every 10 minutes. It's normal that you didn't notice it when you were taking his pulse. If I hadn't discovered it by chance, I definitely wouldn't have known. Why don't you give it a try now? Chapter 6704. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion, Apothecary Wei's interest was piqued. He turned to look at Yang Lingfeng. Young Master Yang, I wonder, Yang Lingfeng smiled and said, Apothecary Wei, feel free to take a look. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was so young and didn't seem to be very convincing, he didn't know why he felt that there was no problem with Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment. As long as it wasn't a problem with his body, he felt much better. After Apothecary Wei took the pulse, he realized that the situation was the same as what he had discovered previously. However, after knowing that it would take 10 minutes, he patiently listened carefully. Yang Qinxue and the others also understood that this wasn't the time to make a ruckus. They all stood silently to the side, waiting for the diagnosis results. A moment later, Apothecary Wei's expression suddenly changed. There was a hint of surprise between his brows. Upon seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that Apothecary Wei must have discovered the problem. So that's how it is. I've taken the pulse many times, but I've never encountered it. It's fate that you encountered it. Apothecary Wei retracted his hand and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. Apothecary Wei, does that mean that everything Miss Bailey said is true? Apothecary Wei nodded slightly. That's right. There are indeed some problems in young Master Yang's body. It's very possible that the remaining poison hasn't been cleared. Miss Bailey's luck is really good. She actually happened to encounter it. She's really amazing. Bai Luchuan was about to die from anger. Bailey Hongzhuang's luck was actually so good. She could discover a problem that so many people hadn't discovered. Could there be anything more exaggerated? Seeing that Bai Luchuan attributed all of this to luck, Apothecary Wei retorted, This isn't luck. It's because little friend Bailey's knowledge is stable. This slight change isn't obvious. If she wasn't careful enough, she definitely wouldn't have discovered it. This old man's diagnosis was under the premise that little friend Bailey reminded me. This slight difference is really easy to overlook. Bai Ziwan and the others were secretly surprised by Apothecary Wei's praise. Even though Apothecary Wei admired Bailey Hongzhuang a lot, he wouldn't deliberately say such things just to praise her. Therefore, there was only one reason left. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly talented. Bai Ziwan and Yang Han were very clear that Bailey Hongzhuang was the only one who was able to detect it, even though so many pharmacists were unable to do so. This was her strength. Miss Bailey really lives up to your reputation. At this moment, Yang Han no longer had any objections. He also understood why Bai Ziyuan and the others were so polite to Bailey Hongzhuang. Such a lady was truly admirable. City Lord Yang is too kind. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her fists. If it really is a remnant poison, as long as we can resolve it, young Master Yang's illness will be cured. Yang Qinxue and the others were pleasantly surprised. Sorry to trouble you. If Miss Bailey is able to cure Ling Feng, we will definitely do our best regardless of the reward. Yang Han also spoke. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang bowed with a smile. She didn't refute. Bai Ziyuan could tell that every city lord was quite wealthy. They hadn't been in the chaotic immortal realm for long, so they naturally wouldn't complain about having too many resources. It was only right to do things with money. Chapter 6705. Master has been gone for so long, but she still hasn't come back. What is she doing? Xiaohei wandered on the spot. She wanted to go with her master, but she didn't expect to be despised for being noisy, so she could only stay here. Di Xiaofeng was also a little worried. Hong Zhuang usually treats patients very quickly, but she took so long this time. Could it be that Bai Luchuan took the opportunity to cause trouble again? I think we can't just sit here and wait for death. Why don't we go and take a look? Zhong Limu couldn't hold it in anymore. At this moment, familiar footsteps gradually came from not far away. Hong Zhuang is here. Di Beichen's lips curled up slightly. They were together day and night, so he could tell just by listening to the sound of footsteps. Bailey Hong Zhuang walked closer and found that everyone was gathered together. It was obvious that they didn't have the slightest intention of admiring the scenery. Are you anxious from waiting? You're finally back. Di Beichun smiled faintly. If you didn't come back, everyone was prepared to rush in and bring you out. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang burst out laughing. It's not that exaggerated. What he said is true, Mo Yunjue said. Don't worry, it's nothing. It's just that young Master Yang's illness is a little special, so it took a little more time. Bailey Hong Zhuang looked indifferent. Even if Bai Luchuan wants to deal with me, I have a lot of helpers. I think he will inevitably be punished when he goes back today. This guy is really troublesome. We should keep him in confinement to prevent him from harming others. Di Xiaofeng said. Let's go. Let's go back. Bailey Hong Zhuang took 2 steps forward, and the others quickly followed. Although everyone was curious about Yang Lingfeng's illness, no one asked. Bai Qingli's attitude was already very clear. Asking would only make things difficult for Hong Zhuang. On the other hand, Bailey Hong Zhuang knew that everyone was curious, especially Gong Jun. From time to time, he would look at her with a curious expression. According to my judgment, young Master Yang should have been poisoned a few years ago, and the residual poison is still lingering in his body. Hearing this, Gong Jun also understood. So that's how it is. Looking at his mysterious appearance, I thought he had some incurable disease. He is the city lord's son. Naturally, we have to keep his illness a secret. Otherwise, wouldn't it be terrible if someone uses it to deal with him? Di Beichun chuckled. Gong Jun nodded slightly. Indeed, who asked him to be of such a high status? We have to be on our guard at all times. Bailey Hong Zhuang took out the illusory form bead. When she came back earlier, Bai Qingli had already given it to her. Upon seeing the illusion form bead, Xiaohei and Xiao Bai quickly came over, their faces filled with excitement. Illusion form bead. Their 2 claws almost fell on Bailey Hong Zhuang's hand at the same time. She didn't stop them. In any case, this was meant for them. City Lord Yang only has 1 illusion form bead, so I'm afraid one of you will have to wait for a while. It is said that although this illusion form bead doesn't appear very often, it is not a rare treasure. As long as we spend some time looking for it, we will be able to find it. Bailey Hong Zhuang didn't want to see the 2 little ones disappointed. In fact, being able to find an illusion form bead in such a short time was already very difficult. Chapter 6706. Di Beichun looked at the 2 little fellows tangled up and chuckled. I'll leave this illusion form bead to you 2 to decide. Our decision is ultimately unfair. Bailey Hong Zhuang's thoughts were the same. Little Black and Little White had been together since they first appeared. She didn't know how many years it had been. Although the 2 little fellows liked to bicker, their relationship had always been good. There was no need to worry that they would fight when the illusion form bead was in their hands. Thank you, Master, the 2 little fellows said together. Although Di Xiaofeng and the others didn't say anything, from their expressions, one could tell that they were quite curious about how the 2 little fellows would split the bead. Presumably, they would know when they came back in a few days. After returning, Bailey Hong Zhuang began to study Yang Lingfeng's illness. She was very clear about the effects of her mother-in-law's detoxification pill. Ordinary poisons, even the most powerful ones, could be cured as long as one used her mother-in-law's detoxification pill. However, this poison could still retain a trace of toxicity. It was obvious that it wasn't simple. However, From Yang Lingfeng's words, she didn't know who made this poison. Presumably, this person's attainments in the art of poison were not simple. Which star did the male god come from? It seems that my wife is going to work hard on this matter. Di Beichun poured a cup of tea and placed it beside Bailey Hongzhuang. This matter was set up by Bai Luchuan. The city lord and the others have already seen through it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up with a bright smile on her beautiful face. Originally, I didn't take it to heart. After all, this matter has nothing to do with us. However, after I met Yang Lingfeng, I realized that he's not bad. If I can cure him, it'll be great. With Yang Lingfeng's age, this kind of problem must be extremely uncomfortable. Previously, it was fine, but seeing him protect her, she felt that he was much more pleasing to the eye. Di Beichun nodded slightly. As long as you're happy, don't tire yourself out. Of course, there's another important reason why I'm doing this. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Illusion form bead? City Lord Yang obtained an illusory form bead. Perhaps I can ask him where he obtained the illusory form bead, or if he knows of any other places. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want the two little guys to be too entangled. It would be best if they could find them as soon as possible. Pantheon, protect Earth. As long as we can get some clues, we will have a direction. If there really isn't anything, then City Lord Yang will not treat us unfairly. The City Lord's family has always been very rich. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's mischievous and crafty appearance, Di Beichun couldn't help but chuckle. Now that you've known Gong Jun for a long time, you've also become somewhat shrewd. Isn't that good? Bailey Hongzhuang tilted her head and asked. Di Beichun reached out and touched her head. He shook his head and said, "No, my wife is naturally the best." Hee hee. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Today, I heard that Granny's reputation in the realm of chaotic immortals is so resounding. The elixirs she refined are sold at sky-high prices. Thinking about it, we almost ate Granny's elixirs like jelly beans in the abandoned immortal forest. If these people knew, I'm afraid they would go crazy. Granny has always been very generous to us. As Di Beichun spoke, his gaze turned to the thing in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and said, "Could it be that Yang Lingfeng's illness is related to Granny?" Chapter 6707. We all know how effective Granny's detoxification pill is, but the poison was not completely neutralized even after taking the detoxification pill. I'm curious, so I want to find out. Hearing this, Di Beichun finally understood. Hongzhuang was most concerned about this. Others may not know, but he knew how important Granny was to Hongzhuang. You don't have to worry about me. Rest well. Bailey Hongzhuang pulled Di Beichun's hand and shook it. Yang Lingfeng has been poisoned for 5 years. There's no need to rush. Di Beichun nodded. All right, I won't disturb you any further. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully checked Yang Lingfeng's blood. The residual poison was not obvious, so it would be difficult to find any clues. She was not worried. If it was so easy to find out, then Yang Lingfeng would have been poisoned for so many years. Compared to others, she knew the recipe for Granny Hua's detoxification pill very well, so it would be easier for her to study it. Back in the abandoned immortal forest, she had asked Granny what kind of poison her detoxification pill could not neutralize. Granny's answer was that other than the poison she created, all other poisons could not be neutralized. Perhaps other people would be too arrogant if they said such words, but she knew that Granny had absolute confidence in qualifications. Now, such a poison had appeared. Since it was a very powerful poison, could it be a poison refined by Granny? If it wasn't, then wouldn't it mean that there was a very powerful poison master? It was a pity that Granny was not here. Otherwise, she would have found out very quickly. She could only study it slowly. She believed that as long as she spent more time, she would be able to find out. If there really was such a powerful poison master, then she would have to tell Granny about it in the future. While Bailey Hongzhuang was focused on her research, Medicine Master Wei was also focused on his research. Yang Han and the others wanted to see how Medicine Master Wei planned to study it. They were very curious about the results. However, Medicine Master Wei only said that he was going to close the door and study it carefully, then turn them away. Looks like Apothecary Wei is serious this time. Bai Ziyuan smiled faintly. Apothecary Wei had been in the city lord's mansion for many years, so he knew his personality very well. Once there was such a reaction, it meant that he really wanted to study it properly. He remembered that there was a time when he stayed at home for 3 whole months before coming out. Although Lady Bailey is young, she is truly formidable. So many alchemists were unable to discover it, but she was able to. If Ling Feng's problem can really be solved, then we must thank her properly. Yang Qinxue was full of anticipation. In the past 5 years, they had met many pharmacists, but none of them could find a solution. This was the first time they were so close to success. Brother Bai, I was right to come to your birthday celebration. Yang Han was in an extremely good mood. Even if he couldn't solve it for the time being, he still had to find the root cause. Then, there was a possibility of a cure. It was much better than working hard in other areas without knowing the cause. Bai Ziyuan chuckled. Your illusory form bead is worth it. If not for my calligraphy and painting. Chapter 6708. Mayor Yang and his family stayed in Shiyun City for the time being. After seeing that Medicine Master Wei had gone into seclusion for research, they could roughly guess that Bailey Hongzhuang was doing the same. Yang Lingfeng and Yang Qinxue couldn't help but want to wander around Bailey Hongzhuang's residence. However, every time they were about to reach it, they stopped in their tracks, afraid that their rash appearance would disturb Hongzhuang's progress. When Gong Jun came out of the courtyard and saw the two hesitating, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, Are the two of you looking for Madam? Is Miss Bailey very busy right now? Yang Qinxue asked. Gong Jun nodded. Madam has been researching ever since she returned from the city lord's birthday celebration. I went in just now to see my boss. Madam seems to have been locked in her room the whole time. Hearing this, Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng looked at each other and understood. In that case, we won't disturb her, Yang Lingfeng said. Gong Jun smiled slightly. Don't worry, Madam's medical skills have always been very good. Since she has put in so much effort to research, she will definitely find a solution. We also believe in her, Tang Dynasty of North America said. Yang Lingfeng smiled. Ever since he met Bailey Hongzhuang, he understood that she was serious. She wasn't someone who coveted fame, but real talent. You don't know, but the pills refined by Madam have always been the most popular. Compared to pills of the same grade, the effects of her pills are much better than ordinary pills. Gong Jun's face was full of pride. Now that the pills refined by Madam had completely become the signature of Xianbao Pavilion, he didn't sell them casually, but limited them. At first, he was a little worried that this might affect Xianbao Pavilion's business, but now it seemed that there was no impact at all. On the contrary, business was getting better and better. However, Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng were shocked after hearing this. Is what you said true? Many people in the city know about this. How can it be false? Gong Jun smiled and waved his hand. My Immortal Treasure Pavilion has never been a match for the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion, but since Madam and Boss came out, business has been getting better and better. Why don't we go take a look at your Immortal Treasure Pavilion? Yang Qinxue's interest was piqued. Rebirth. I'm on my OG sure. Gong Jun nodded and smiled. If Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were here, they would know what Gong Jun was up to once they saw his smile. I heard that the medicinal pills refined by Granny Hua in the past were much better than those refined by ordinary alchemists. I didn't expect Miss Bailey to be able to achieve this. It's really amazing. Yang Lingfeng sighed. Even though he hadn't seen it yet, he knew that Gong Jun wouldn't lie about such things. No wonder she was able to discover your problem. That's why she's so good, Yang Qinxue praised. I don't seem to have seen Bai Luchuan recently. Gong Jun pretended to ask casually. A trace of disgust appeared in Yang Qinxue's eyes. That guy went overboard at the birthday banquet. Later on, he targeted me everywhere. Now he's being grounded. I don't think he'll be out for a while. Chapter 6709. Wait for Bai Luchuan to figure it out. Gong Jun chuckled. I'm afraid he won't be able to figure it out for the rest of his life. Hearing the mockery in Gong Jun's words, the two didn't mind at all. After this incident, their good impression of Bai Luchuan had been completely destroyed. When the three arrived, they found that the Immortal Treasure Pavilion was indeed as busy as a marketplace. It looked very lively. In contrast, The business of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion opposite them was rather quiet. Pills, runes, and formations were all dominated by the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. After all, the Myriad Treasures Pavilion was like a starving camel that was still bigger than a horse. They still had the advantage in terms of pill furnaces and weapons. The standard of the refiners in Shiyun City couldn't compare to the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Now, they could only rely on this aspect to maintain their business. Brother Gong, your Immortal Treasure Pavilion is really amazing. This is the first time I've seen someone open their own shop and actually snatch the business of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. It's really a first. Yang Lingfeng was surprised. The Myriad Treasures Pavilion also existed in Qingyang City, but in terms of business, the other shops couldn't compare at all. Gong Jun chuckled. It's all because of boss and madam. When I opened this shop previously, business was half dead. Look around and see if there's anything you like. I'll give it to you. That won't do. Since we're doing business, how can we give it to you? Yang Lingfeng immediately refused. We're all friends. There's no need to be so polite, Gong Jun said. Yang Qinxue waved her hand. If you're willing to let us buy it, then we'll take a look. If you insist on giving it to us, then we'll have to leave. Seeing this, Gong Jun looked troubled. He could only helplessly say, all right, I'll give you a discount. That should be fine, right? Haha, all right. When the people in the Immortal Treasure Pavilion saw Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng, surprise appeared in their eyes. Aren't they the children of the Qingyang City Lord? I didn't expect them to have such a good relationship with the shopkeeper of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. It seems that the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's background isn't simple. Although the Myriad Treasures Pavilion is backed by the Immortal Region's Myriad Treasures Pavilion, in this city, their influence can't compare to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. The items from the Immortal Treasure Pavilion are not bad. With such a background, there is no need to worry about them in the future. Gong Jun smiled as he accompanied Yang Lingfeng and Yang Lingfeng in their selection. Listening to the discussions around them, he felt a burst of happiness in his heart. He had invited Yang Lingfeng and Yang Lingfeng for this purpose, and now it seemed that the effect was excellent. At this moment, Bai Qingli also appeared in the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. In an instant, the gazes of everyone in the store changed. No matter what, Qingyang City was still a neighboring city, but Bai Qingli was the son of the city lord. At this moment, they were all gathered here. How could this be? So you're here. I went out and looked around, but didn't see you. If I didn't happen to hear someone talking about you, I wouldn't have been able to find you. Bai Qingli smiled. Yang Qinxue smiled. We heard that Miss Bailey's pills are not simple, so we wanted to come and see for ourselves. I'm ashamed to say this. Although I've long heard of this name, I've never seen it before. Since we're here today, why don't we give it a try? Bai Qingli's interest was also piqued. Before he met Bailey Hongzhuang, he had heard of this rumor and felt that it was too exaggerated. Now that he thought about it, it was very likely that this was the truth. Chapter 6710. Bailey Hongzhuang was concentrating on her research in the room. Gong Jun had also sent over quite a few medicinal herbs for her to experiment with. It had to be said that this poison was indeed more complicated than she had imagined. Over the past few days, she had already tried many different scenarios, but none of them matched. Although the difficulty was high, the more it was so, the more it piqued Bailey Hongzhuang's interest. She did not believe that she would not be able to figure it out. Di Beichun was cultivating in the room. Other than forcing Hongzhuang to rest when it was time to rest, he usually let her do as she pleased. Speaking of which, it was strange. After Xiao He and Xiao Bai obtained the illusory form pearl, they claimed that they wanted to go into closed-door cultivation. After closing the door, they hid in the room next door. For the past few days, these two little fellows had also been in closed-door cultivation. No one knew what they were up to. However, the illusory form pearl was a great supplement for monstrous beasts. There was no need to worry about any harm, so he did not pay too much attention to it. One day, two screams suddenly came from the room next door. Hearing this, Di Beichun immediately stood up and looked at the room next door. Could it be that Xiao He and Xiao Bai had transformed into human form? Even Bailey Hongzhuang, who was concentrating on her research, quickly came over after hearing the commotion. Her fair face was filled with surprise. What's going on? Maybe Xiao He and Xiao Bai have found something. Di Beichen said. The two of them looked at each other, and a trace of curiosity rose in their hearts. These two little fellows had always been noisy. They wondered what they looked like now. Come, let's go take a look. Di Beichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked towards the room next door. Just as the two of them were about to push open the door and enter, the two little fellows' nervous voices came from inside. Don't come in first. Hearing this, the two of them stopped abruptly at the door and asked curiously, What's wrong with you two? Have you successfully transformed into human form? A moment later, the door was opened. However, after opening the door, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Xiao still saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai in their original appearances. There was still a trace of panic on their faces. What's wrong with you? No, nothing. The two beasts hurriedly drew, but their expressions clearly showed that they had a guilty conscience. Which one of you took the illusion form bead? Di Beichen looked at the two little fellows. Judging from their appearance, the two little fellows were exactly the same. He couldn't tell what was different about them, so he couldn't tell who had eaten them. Master, don't get involved in this matter. Xiao He said with a smile. We've already decided that before we find the other illusory form bead, we'll keep appearing in this state, right? Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai nodded repeatedly. That's right, this is the best. Faced with the two little fellows' explanation, Bailey Hongzhuang had a suspicious look on her face. She didn't believe what they said at all. If that's really the case, you can keep one illusion form bead and use it together when you find the second one. But now, you won't have the same problem as Xiao Xuanzi, right? Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly asked. As soon as she said this, Xiao He and Xiao Bai couldn't help but cough in fright. They waved their hands and said, No. You've been with me for so many years. What's there to be embarrassed about? Chapter 67:11. Bailey Hongzhuang was all smiles. Don't be so secretive. You have to show it to us. Master, it's better if you don't. Are you going to show it to us or not? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes, and her tone was threatening and enticing. I'll reward you with good food tonight. Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked conflicted. After a long while, they finally said slowly, All right, then. In the next moment, under their expectant gazes, Xiao He transformed. However, when the two of them saw her transformed appearance, they couldn't help but be stunned. Their eyes were filled with shock, because the Xiao He in front of them didn't transform into a stunning beauty or a distinguished scholar. Instead, she was a delicate little girl. For a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang wondered if she had seen wrongly. However, after checking again and again, she was sure that she hadn't seen wrongly. However, Yin Che and Xiao Xuanzi hadn't grown up as long as Xiao He. They had already become adults. Xiao He had lived for so many years, but after transforming, she was still a child. It was truly shocking. Perhaps this is the difference between white light spirits? Bailey Hongzhuang sank into deep thought. Then, a smile bloomed on her face again. She reached out and pinched Xiao He's cheeks. This little girl is really good looking. Her little face is so tender. You can even squeeze water out of it. Xiao He blushed. She pursed her lips and said, Master, don't tease me. I'm telling the truth. Your appearance is indeed exquisite and beautiful. Bailey Hongzhuang praised from the bottom of her heart. There were many good-looking little girls, but Xiao He's transformed appearance was the most beautiful one she had ever seen. Such an adorable appearance that seemed to be carved from jade could melt anyone's heart. At first, I couldn't quite imagine what you would look like after transforming. But now, it seems that you are indeed very suitable. She turned to look at Xiao Bai. If we find the other illusory form orb, Xiao Bai should become a cute little boy. Di Beichen nodded slightly. That should be the case. Just as the two of them were talking, little White suddenly changed, turning into a jade-like little boy. Seeing this, the two of them were stunned. What was going on? There was only one illusory form orb, but the two little fellows had transformed. What's going on? Di Beichen realized that something was wrong and asked. Xiao He and Xiao Bai, we split the illusory form orb into two halves. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. No wonder the two little guys had turned into children. It turned out that the amount of illusory form beads wasn't enough. If an entire illusory form orb could allow them to transform into an adult, then after eating only half of it, they could only transform into a child. You two are really bold. One illusory form orb is only enough for one demonic beast. You two actually decided to split it. Fortunately, there were no problems. Otherwise, it would be terrible. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai lowered their heads and said helplessly, "We also didn't expect this to happen. It's just that one illusory form orb is really too difficult to split." "Forget it. Isn't it good that you two are like this? Although you look a little younger, at least you've transformed into a human. Once we find the other illusory form orb, you two can consume the other half. I think this problem will be solved." Chapter 67:12. Seeing that their master did not blame them, Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai finally relaxed and returned to their original playful selves. "Thank you, master." Di Beichen reached out and picked up Xiao Bai, then turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. "If we bring these adorable little dolls back, grandmother and the rest will definitely like them very much." Bailey Hongzhuang also picked up Xiao Hei. These two little dolls, who looked only 3 years old, were indeed very good-looking. The more one looked at them, the more one liked them. However, when she heard Di Beichen's words, she understood what he meant. Grandmother had always hoped that they would have a child soon. However, this kind of thing also depended on fate. If Yin Che and Xiao Xuanzi see you like this, they will definitely find it very interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. These little fellows used to be together all day long. Ever since Yin Che and the rest had transformed, they had begun to look forward to Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai. Their reactions would probably be even more intense than theirs when they saw this scene. As soon as she said this, Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai's expressions instantly changed. No, we can't let them see this. If they were seen like this, they would recall how they used to flaunt their seniority. Would they still have any face left? Since they're already here, let's just take things as they come. They won't mind. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. They all know about the illusory form pearl. Even if we intentionally hide it, don't tell me they won't be able to see through it? Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai instantly sighed. You'll have to pay for what you've done. What did it feel like to go out with a little doll in your arms? When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen brought Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai out the door, everyone turned their heads. Originally, Di Beichen and Li Du were already very attractive. In addition, these two little dolls were so cute that everyone couldn't help but take a few more glances at them. Look, there's actually such a pretty little doll. This is the first time I've seen such a cute little doll. Could they be Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's children? Isn't this too beautiful? It's all because of their good genes and good-looking parents. That's why their children are so outstanding. Everyone sighed one after another. This family was really too eye-catching when they went out. Xiao Hei wrapped her arms around Bailey Hongzhuang's neck. Although she was treated as her master's child, she had to admit that it was a different feeling to go out like this. Master, you and a male master have to work harder and give birth to a baby soon. This way, Xiao Bai and I can take care of our younger siblings together, right? Bailey Hongzhuang pinched Xiao Hei's cheeks. Then we'll have to look forward to finding the illusion form pearl soon. Otherwise, if we get pregnant, won't others say that I'm too good at giving birth? Going out with 3 children. That scene was indeed a little hard to imagine. Xiao Hei's expression stiffened. It's okay, your husband doesn't mind. Di Beichen's lips curled up slightly. His voice was calm and gentle. Bailey Hongzhuang's face reddened. You don't mind, but I do. I believe that no matter if it's grandmother or maternal grandmother, they won't mind. Bailey Hongzhuang chose to keep quiet. She had never been able to win against Di Beichen on this kind of issue. However, the scene of carrying Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai out together made her look forward to it. If she really had a child with Beichen, she wondered who this child would look like. Chapter 67:13. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the restaurant, they immediately attracted the attention of many people. Many ladies' eyes softened when they saw the 2 adorable little children. Such adorable children. I really want to hug them. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai could feel the constant stares coming from all around them. This was the first time they realized how terrifying the stares of humans could be. They could not wait to pack them up and bring them home. When you're outside, you can't run away with strangers when you meet them. You must follow them closely, okay? Bailey Hongzhuang also found this scene extremely amusing. She reached out and patted Xiao Hei's head. After we're done eating, I'll bring you to have some new clothes made. The two little ones were simply too adorable. They would definitely look even better in some new clothes. Xiao Hei looked at her master helplessly. Sure enough, women change at times like this. You weren't like this in the past. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's playfulness and allowed her to do as she pleased. It would be nice for her to experience what it was like to be a mother as soon as possible. That's right. Gong Jun knows of a cloth clothing store that's excellent. Can you ask him where the store is? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichen. Everyone had said that the clothes that Gong Jun had made for them were not bad. Even she was very satisfied with them. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Don't worry, I've already informed Gong Jun that he's coming. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai could not help but panic when they heard that Gong Jun was coming. They were not mentally prepared for this. This won't do. We have to hide quickly. The two little ones were contemplating whether they should revert back to their original appearances in front of everyone. However, wouldn't that be a little inappropriate? Just as the two little guys were in a dilemma, a familiar voice was heard. Boss! Then, a round figure quickly ran over. However, when he got closer and closer, he also noticed the two little dolls that looked like they were carved out of jade. Instantly, his kind gaze turned into horror, astonishment, and disbelief. Gong Jun stared blankly for a long while before suddenly crying to Di Beichen, Boss, when did you have two children? You didn't even tell me. This is too much. Look, this child has grown up so well. He has completely inherited your genes. Gong Jun looked at the two little cuties happily. Come, tell Uncle what you like. Uncle will buy it for you. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh when she saw how quickly Gong Jun assumed the identity of an uncle. This guy was quite shrewd when it came to other things, but he didn't use his brain when it came to this kind of thing. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai couldn't help but roll their eyes. If it was a girl showing such an adorable expression, it would have been fine. However, as a man, what was he trying to do by showing such an expression to us? No need anymore, Xiao Hei said through gritted teeth. Gong Jun ignored her and directly carried Xiao Hei. Haha, I haven't seen such an adorable child in a long time. You're the child. Your whole family is made up of children. Xiao Hei couldn't help but curse. This guy wanted nothing more than to press his face against hers. What's with this greasy feeling? Chapter 67:14. Of course I'm familiar. I'm Xiao Hei. Little Hei raised its voice to emphasize who it was. Hearing this, Gong Jun was so scared that he let go of his hand. Xiao Hei also stood directly on the table. Oh my God, you're Xiao Hei. That's right, that's me. Xiao Hei put her hands on her hips and said aggressively. Her words were full of vigor, but with that soft face, it didn't seem convincing at all. Gong Jun looked at Xiao Hei, and then his gaze fell on the little boy beside her. So this is Xiao Bai? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but nod. You're right. Gong Jun held his head and said with a blank face, It's only been a few days. What happened? Why did it become like this? That's right. The illusory form pearl. But isn't there only one illusory form pearl? How did the two of them turn into human forms? Thoughts kept appearing in Gong Jun's mind. Di Beichen calmly ordered a few dishes, and then pulled Bailey Hongzhuang to sit down. It was better to wait for Gong Jun to recover from his shock before asking. Who am I? Where am I? What happened? After struggling for a while, Gong Jun finally accepted this fact and turned to seek confirmation from Di Beichen. Boss, they couldn't have eaten the illusory form pearl together, right? That's right. Di Beichen nodded. I think that half of the illusory form pearl's effect wasn't enough, so they turned into children. Gong Jun sighed. You guys are really amazing. Normal people wouldn't dare to try something like this. Gong Jun, that's why you have to help us gather more information and find the other illusory form pearl as soon as possible. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai each stood on either side of Gong Jun, holding his hand with an anxious look on their faces. Gong Jun opened his hands and hugged the two little guys to sit on his lap. With a kind face, he said, Why are you in such a hurry? I think the two of you are pretty good like this. We don't usually have children around us. Don't you think you look so cute? Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai's faces immediately darkened. Don't talk nonsense. Anyway, we need to get bigger as soon as possible. Good. Gong Jun nodded helplessly. I've been trying to find out more about this recently, but because there aren't many illusion form beads, I haven't received any news yet. I don't think you need to be too anxious. Since this thing exists, it will definitely be found. It's just that it will take a little more time. Seeing Gong Jun's serious expression, the two little guys sighed. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? It was too late for regrets. That's right. I want to take them to make some new clothes later. Take us there, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Gong Jun nodded repeatedly. No problem. Make as many as you want. Leave it to me. Just as the dishes were served and everyone was about to eat, suddenly, a surprised voice was heard. Io, what a coincidence to bump into you guys when we came out to eat. Turning around, everyone saw Ziren and Shangwan Yingying walking over with faces full of joy. Chapter 67:15. When Ziren saw Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai, their reactions were not much better than Gong Jun's. Shangwan Yingying looked at the two cute children in surprise and said with a smile, "Whose children are these? They're so cute. Let Annie hug them." Xiao Hei was carried up by Shangwan Yingying, and she immediately looked like she had nothing to live for. Thinking back to the scene of Bai Shi and Xiao Xuanzi transforming into their human forms, and then thinking about herself, a random person wanted to hug her and pinch her face, the difference was too great. Hongzhuang, we haven't seen each other in a while. Where did you find such cute dolls? Shangwan Yingying was overflowing with love. I don't usually like children, but these two children are just too cute. It makes me like them at first glance. I don't know why. I actually find them a little familiar. Hearing Shangwan Yingying's words, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. It's right that you find them familiar. What do you mean? They're Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai. Bailey Hongzhuang did not tease Shangwan Yingying. She smiled and recounted the entire story, when Ziren's face was also filled with astonishment. It can't be. Half an illusory form pearl actually has such an effect. This matter is also beyond our expectations. Other than these two buffoons, I'm afraid no one else would have thought of doing this. Deep Beichun shook his head and chuckled. This is new, but I think it's pretty good this way. What two cute dolls. It's even more interesting when they go out. Ziren smiled and teased the two little fellows. Gong Jun nodded repeatedly, clearly in agreement. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai could no longer stand these fellows. Their previous wise and mighty image would probably never be found again. I heard that Bai Luchuan was confined. I wonder if this is true? Ziren restrained his joking expression. I originally wanted to teach this fellow a lesson, but this fellow doesn't go out. It's harder for us to deal with him. A mere confinement was obviously too easy for him. This guy was so hateful and narrow-minded. Confinement had almost no effect on him. Once he came out, he would definitely cause trouble for them again. Rather than that, the best way was to take the initiative to attack. However, City Lord Manor's punishment was a form of protection for Bai Luchuan. After all, they couldn't rush in and attack Bai Luchuan, right? I also heard that he was confined and his cultivation resources were also confiscated. This is what Miss Yang and the others told me. City Lord is completely disappointed in Bai Luchuan. If it wasn't for the blood relationship, I'm afraid he wouldn't be willing to bother with him, Gong Jun said slowly. Reducing his power is not bad. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. What about Yun Xiaoman? This woman was the biggest reason for all the conflicts. He couldn't let her go just like that. I heard that Yun Xiaoman has always been living in by Liu Chuan's manor. I'm not sure what the situation is like now. Gong Jun frowned. He had nearly forgotten about this woman. These are troubled times. Yun Xiaoman should know that she definitely won't dare to show her face recently. However, you should be more careful, Di Beichen said. Boss, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. I definitely won't let her have an easy time. Bai Lu Chuan can't care about her now. I'll find an opportunity to take action. Chapter 67:16. Speaking of which, it's strange that Guan Hong Tian hasn't done anything other than setting a trap. This isn't in line with his character. Ziren raised his eyebrows slightly with a trace of doubt. In his opinion, Guan Hongtian was a vengeful person. He cared so much about Guan Yi, so how could he not do anything? That's right. We were worried that Wan Bao Pavilion would make a move on us. I didn't expect them to be so quiet. It's as if nothing happened. Shang Guanying was also a little surprised. Gong Jun smiled mysteriously. Isn't it because Madam saved by Qingli? If not for that, Guan Hongtian would have made a move. It's only because we have a close relationship with the City Lord's mansion that he hasn't done anything yet. I can guarantee that as soon as we leave Shiyan City, he will immediately come back to cause trouble. As soon as he said this, everyone looked at each other and understood. It seems that we still can't let down our guard. We have to pay attention to these problems. Everyone ate while drinking and chatting. It was a very enjoyable time. Hong Zhuang, I heard that you've been studying young Master Yang's condition. Have you made any progress recently? Shangguan Yingying was sitting next to Bailey Hong Zhuang, and after pouring a glass of plum wine for her, she asked aloud, I've made some progress. I didn't expect there to be something else in the poison that Granny mentioned to me before. I'm really starting to suspect that the poison in young Master Yang's body was refined by Granny Hua. If that was the case, it would be too much of a coincidence. Yang Lingfeng's luck could be said to be heaven-defying. The world is big, and there are all kinds of strange things. Although the possibility of this is not high, it's not impossible. Shangguan Ying smiled. She understood Hong Zhuang's medical skills. For a poison to be studied by Hong Zhuang for so long, it was enough to prove how powerful the poison maker was. Thinking about it, other than Granny Hua, no one else could do it. Even so, I still feel that this poison is more insidious than the one Granny refined. It doesn't match Granny's personality. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. This was what she didn't understand the most. If she wasn't wrong, this poison was supposed to torture people to death. If it wasn't for her grandmother's antidote, Yang Lingfeng would have died long ago. Although the poison refined by her mother-in-law was quite vicious compared to this poison, it was a little more pleasurable. Vaguely, she felt that something was wrong. She was afraid that she would have to ask Apothecary Wei about this. Perhaps she would be able to learn something. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking seriously, Shangguan Yingying did not refute. Hongzhuang had the best relationship with her mother-in-law, so she knew her mother-in-law's style best. If she felt that there was something wrong, then there must be something wrong. There are so many pharmacists in the entire Immortal region. Perhaps someone else poisoned her, or perhaps it has something to do with Granny. Di Beichun comforted. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She also felt that the possibility of this happening was very high. After a few more days, Bailey Hongzhuang finally figured out a way to detoxify the poison. Immediately, she went to the City Lord's mansion with Di Beichun. Yang Han and the others were simply waiting day and night. They hoped that Apothecary Wei would come out of seclusion as soon as possible. They also hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would come sooner. Chapter 67-17. Thankfully, Yang Han and Bai Ziyuan were familiar with each other and did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort in the governor's estate. As a result, the wait was not too long. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived, Yang Han and Bai Ziyuan were in the middle of a game of chess. The two of them enjoyed playing chess whenever they got together. When they suddenly heard the news of Bailey Hongzhuang's arrival, the two of them ignored the game on the chessboard and hurried over. However, they had only taken a few steps into the governor's estate when Bailey Hongzhuang saw Bai Qingli and the others. She immediately smiled. Miss Bailey, you've finally come. Bai Qingli was pleasantly surprised. While you were in closed-door cultivation, these two have been constantly asking when you would reappear. It's made me feel very helpless. It's not as exaggerated as you make it sound. Yang Qinxue hurriedly interjected. There was even some embarrassment on her face. Miss Bailey, don't listen to his nonsense. If you all treat me as a friend, then please call me Hong Zhuang. Hearing this, the three of them were delighted. Of course, that's great. Don't be too distant when you call us that. Come to think of it, we've known each other for quite some time. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. All right. Hongzhuang, have you come today because there's been some progress in Lingfeng's illness? Yang Qinxue's face was filled with concern. She could not wait to know the results. but was worried that there was no cure. Indeed, I made some progress. As soon as he said this, the eyes of the three lit up. Even Yang Lingfeng's face was filled with excitement. Over the past 5 years, he had seen so many pharmacists that he had almost given up hope. He never thought that hope would appear before him at this moment. It was simply too delightful. I'll come this time with the antidote that I've concocted. However, we'll only know after Lingfeng has tried it. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's words were not too certain, there was a hint of confidence in her tone. She had already tested it with Yang Lingfeng's blood. The antidote she had concocted was able to neutralize the poison. You've already concocted the antidote? Yang Qinxue found it hard to believe. Medicine Master Wei has been cooped up in his room all this time. We know how difficult it is to detoxify him. This poison is indeed not easy to detoxify. It's just that I have some understanding of the detoxification pill that Ling Feng took, so it's easier for me to study it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Apothecary Wei had been immersed in the art of healing for many years, so there was no need to mention his medical skills. She had spent so much time researching the antidote formula, so it was no surprise that Apothecary Wei was unable to figure it out. When Yang Han and Bai Ziwan arrived and heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they secretly nodded their heads. This young lady was indeed different from other young people who were arrogant and complacent. She was humble and courteous, which made people satisfied. City Lord Bai, City Lord Yang. Bailey Hongzhuang greeted them with a bow. Miss Bailey, there's no need to be so polite. May I know if you've come to understand Lingfeng's situation? Bai Ziwan asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I've already concocted the antidote. If you trust me, let Lingfeng take it and we'll know the results. Hearing this, without waiting for Yang Han and the others to speak, Yang Lingfeng took the lead and said, I trust you. Chapter 67:18. Since Lingfeng trusts you so much, we naturally trust you as well. Yang Han smiled. He wasn't worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would harm them because there was no need to. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and handed the antidote to Yang Lingfeng. Here's the antidote, but according to my judgment, you won't feel much better after taking it. The remaining poison has been in your body for too long. If we want to force it out completely, we'll have to use some ruthless methods. That's why I've given you a heavier dose this time. This was the result of her careful consideration. The poison that Bailey Hongzhuang had given him wasn't simple to begin with. Furthermore, it had been in his body for so many years that it had almost become one with him. If they wanted to force the poison out completely, they'd have to use some ruthless methods. If they couldn't do it in one go, it'd be even more troublesome in the future. Fortunately, Yang Lingfeng was young and healthy. He should be able to handle it. Di Beichun also spoke up. Once the poison is completely removed, you might fall into a coma. However, as long as you take good care of yourself, you'll make a full recovery in a few days. Everyone was surprised to hear that taking the antidote would result in such a serious condition. The antidote pills they usually took wouldn't cause such a situation. The three kingdoms of Huan, Yang Lingfeng, didn't hesitate at all. I understand. I'll just fall into a coma. It's fine as long as I don't die. Everyone couldn't help but chuckle. It was clearly a serious matter, but when he put it that way, it didn't seem like a big deal. At this moment, Medicine Master Wei, who had been in seclusion all this time, rushed over. Little friend Bailey, you've developed the antidote so quickly. Medicine Master Wei's hoarse voice was tinged with surprise as he hurriedly asked. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head, she saw Medicine Master Wei, whom she hadn't seen for a few days. At the moment, his clothes were covered with all kinds of medicinal herbs, and his beard was all over his mouth. His appearance was indescribably messy, and he looked completely different from when they first met. With this appearance, it was obvious that he'd been working tirelessly on his research. If she hadn't come here today, Medicine Master Wei wouldn't have been able to maintain this appearance for long. Bailey Hongzhuang told Apothecary Wei the results of her research. As for the antidote, Apothecary Wei couldn't tell if it was right or wrong. After all, he hadn't researched this area yet. Jizuan demonic concubine. Ghost Emperor, I refuse to accept this. However, after hearing about the effects of the antidote, he nodded and said, it's true that this will happen after removing the residual poison for many years. Ling Feng is young and strong, so it shouldn't be a problem. If everyone was still a little worried at first, they were no longer worried after hearing this. If that's the case, let's give it a try, Yang Qinxue said. Let's go to Ling Feng's residence. Bai Ziyuan immediately made a decision. If Ling Feng is really unconscious, you can take a look. After arriving at Yang Ling Feng's residence, he consumed the antidote. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the man. They didn't know what would happen. When he first consumed the antidote, Yang Ling Feng didn't feel anything strange. However, as time passed, he gradually felt a pain in his body. The pain intensified as time passed, and his face became paler and paler. Large beads of sweat seeped out of his forehead. He supported himself with his palm on the table, trying his best not to fall. Chapter 67:19. Everyone had also noticed Yang Ling Feng's situation, and their faces were filled with concern. Yang Ling Feng shook his head weakly. His gaze was as determined as ever. Don't worry, I'm fine. However, this voice was undoubtedly much weaker than before. Bailey Hongzhuang held Yang Ling Feng's hand and checked his pulse. She was sure that the antidote she had developed would not have any problems, but the process was indeed very difficult to endure. Although his pulse feels weak, it has not affected his body. Yang Han looked nervous. He was counting on Yang Ling Feng to inherit the family business, so he could not allow anything to happen to him. However, in this situation, there was no other way but to trust Bailey Hongzhuang. The pain was getting more and more intense. Yang Ling Feng had curled up into a ball and sat on the ground. He tried his best to endure it, but did not make any sound. His face was getting paler and paler, and Bailey Hongzhuang was carefully paying attention to his changes. She was thinking that the time should be up. Yang Qinxue could not help but feel anxious when she saw this. She was worried that Bailey Hongzhuang had made a mistake. Otherwise, how could the antidote have ended up in this state? Yang Ling Feng had always had strong willpower. This was the first time she had seen him in such pain. Fantasy nirvana dust just then. Yang Ling Feng suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. Then he fainted. The black blood dripped onto the ground, and a sizzling sound was heard. The blood was mixed with some black blood clots, and the grass on the ground quickly lost its vitality. Everyone's expression changed when they saw this. Just by looking at the condition of the grass, they knew how terrifying the poison was. However, this poison had been in Yang Ling Feng's body for so many years, and no one knew about it. Just the thought of it was terrifying. Yang Han and the others quickly helped Yang Ling Feng up and asked, "What should we do now?" Bailey Hongzhuang saw that after Yang Ling Feng spat out the blood in his mouth had turned bright red. She checked his pulse again and took out a pill and placed it in Yang Ling Feng's mouth. "Don't worry, he's fine. He's just too weak and needs to rest. After 2 hours, he should wake up." Hearing this, everyone relaxed. Bai Qingli and Yang Qinxue escorted Yang Ling Feng into the house. Yang Han could not help but stop by He Shui's side. His face was as gloomy as water. "Princess Shirgu, after so many years, no one has discovered that Ling Feng has been poisoned. If this poison continues to exist in his body, the consequences will be unimaginable once it takes effect in the future." Bai Ziyuan couldn't help but speak out. This situation was truly frightening. Yang Han's face was ashen, but he couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. "Fortunately, I was able to meet Lady Bailey this time. Otherwise, I don't know when Ling Feng's condition would be discovered." He stood up and bowed deeply to Bailey Hongzhuang. "Miss Bailey, thank you for saving my life." Bailey Hongzhuang hurriedly helped Yang Han up. "City Lord Yang, you can't do that. You're our family's savior. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't dare to imagine what would have happened." Yang Han knew very well that if he hadn't met Bailey Hongzhuang, even if someone had discovered the poison, it would have been very difficult to cure it. Haven't you seen how Medicine Master Wei has been tormenting himself for so many days without any clues? Chapter 67:20. What kind of poison is in Ling Feng's body? Even after taking Granny Hua's antidote pill, he still couldn't cure it. Bai Ziyuan fell into deep thought. They were very clear about Granny Hua's reputation. Logically speaking, Granny Hua's antidote pill should be able to cure all poisons. Could it be a poison made by Granny Hua herself? How could there be such a coincidence? Medicine Master Wei couldn't help but say, as far as I know, Granny Hua's antidote pills can't cure all poisons that she made. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard everyone mention this aspect, she immediately became interested. According to my judgment, this poison shouldn't be made by Granny Hua. I would like to ask everyone, is there anyone in the immortal domain whose medical and poison skills are on par with Granny Hua's? Everyone fell into deep thought when they heard this, and their expressions became very complicated. Noticing everyone's change in expression, Bailey Hongzhuang instinctively realized that there must be something going on. Granny Hua once had a disciple. Medicine Master Wei said slowly, if it's not Granny Hua, then it's very likely to be her. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly surprised. Granny Hua's disciple? Di Beichen's expression also changed after hearing this. They didn't hear Granny Hua mention this before. However, Bailey Hongzhuang still had some vague associations in her mind. She remembered that Granny Hua would sometimes reveal a regretful and angry expression. It was just that she didn't talk about it in depth. That's right. Granny Hua did have a disciple called Hualuo. Bai Ziyuan nodded. This Hualuo's medical skills are very outstanding. She has always followed behind Granny Hua. This Hualuo is different from Granny Hua. Although Granny Hua's medical and poison skills are very good, she is a lone wolf and is very righteous. However, for some reason, this Hualuo is very sinister. Her methods are ruthless and her hands are stained with countless amounts of blood. It was because of this that Granny Hua once reprimanded Hualuo. However, Hualuo didn't listen to her and was even extremely disrespectful to Granny Hua. Some people said that a huge battle broke out between them. At that time, this news also shocked the world. Since then, no one has seen Granny Hua again. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other, their hearts filled with shock. Originally, they thought that there must be a reason why Granny Hua chose to live in the abandoned immortal forest. They never thought that something like this would happen. Hualuo's actions were simply deceiving her master and destroying her ancestors. Given her mother-in-law's personality, she would definitely be extremely angry. Bailey Hongzhuang had been with Granny Hua for a long time. She knew that Granny Hua had her own bottom line. She knew what she could do and what she could not do. However, he did not expect that he would have such a disciple. He must be heartbroken. What happened to Hualuo? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. From then on, Granny Hua vanished without a trace, and Hualuo joined a sect in the immortal region. Similarly, she rarely appeared before the eyes of the world. As for which sect it is, I have forgotten. However, it caused such a huge commotion at that time. As long as we go to the immortal region and ask around, we should know. Bai Ziyuan was somewhat helpless. After all, the immortal region is still quite far away from us. Chapter 67:21. Although there were many people in the immortal region who were highly skilled in the art of medicine and poison, this person's poison techniques came from the same source as Granny Hua's. Naturally, Hualuo was most likely the culprit. However, the culprit must have obtained Hualuo's poison by chance. The probability of such a coincidence happening was really small. Perhaps this was also a kind of fate. Little friend Bailey, I didn't expect you to be so familiar with Granny Hua's antidote. Medicine Master Wei sighed. I've studied it for a long time without any results. This speed is truly shameful. He was much older than Bailey Hongzhuang. Although he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang could be considered a genius in this area, he felt that the gap between them wasn't that big. However, this matter clearly showed the gap between them. Her speed was much faster than his. Although he had tried many methods during his seclusion, he had only scratched the surface. Seeing Wei Shang's sad sigh, Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it. In the end, she didn't reveal her identity as Granny Hua's disciple. This time, they had to rely on their own strength to train. If they used their master's name, it would naturally be meaningless. Notes from the exalted immortal. Their masters had warned them about this. Moreover, Hualuo's identity wasn't simple, and she had a grudge with Granny Hua. If they used this name, they would inevitably be noticed by Hualuo. When that time came, it would be very troublesome. At the very least, their current strength was clearly inferior to Hualuo's by a large margin. Medicine Master Wei, I just happen to have some research in this area. In my area of expertise, you're naturally at a disadvantage. Wei Shang, who was originally depressed, smiled when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words of consolation. Forget it. At my age, I actually need to be consoled by little friend Bailey. Speaking of which, it's really embarrassing. In the Yangtze River, each new generation excels the previous one. The student surpasses the master. If young people can have such results, everyone will be better in the future. Everyone burst into laughter when they heard that. Wei Shang was a broad-minded person. Even if he had a moment of self-doubt, he was able to quickly adjust. The arrival of the queen. The cold-hearted prince seduces a concubine when, Bai Ziyuan and the others saw this scene, they secretly laughed in their hearts. This was the first time they had seen someone who could defeat Apothecary Wei to such an extent, especially when this girl was so young. He's neither arrogant nor rash, neither servile nor overbearing. He'll definitely be someone in the future. Yang Han's eyes had a deeper meaning. Whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Deep Beichun, who had been quiet all this time, these two little guys were obviously not ordinary people. Sooner or later, they would make a name for themselves. After being the city lord for so many years, he was still very confident in his eyesight. Bai Ziyuan nodded slightly. He could also see that there were many capable people in the younger generation, but their personality often accounted for a large part of their success. Bai Liuchuan's talent in cultivation wasn't weak either, but compared to the two of them, the difference was obvious. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, it was also very good for them to become friends with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others as soon as possible. Not to mention other things, just Bailey Hongzhuang's skill in medicine and poison had endless uses. No one could guarantee that they wouldn't be troubled by this problem in the future. Chapter 6722. Everyone had always thought that it was Yang Lingfeng's mental illness, but who would have thought that it was actually because of this? If we had met Hongzhuang a few years earlier, Lingfeng wouldn't have had to suffer such a blow, Yang Qinxue joked. In the past, this matter had always been a pain in Lingfeng's heart, so none of them dared to mention it, fearing that it would make Lingfeng feel inferior. But now it was all better. It was only because he was poisoned and had nothing to do with himself. Hongzhuang, thank you, Yang Lingfeng said with a serious expression. This problem had troubled him for so many years, and even his personality had become more and more eccentric. Fortunately, he had met her. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and waved her hand. No need to be so polite. I'm also happy that you've recovered. Miss Bailey, you've helped us greatly this time. I've already said before that no matter what the reward is, as long as it's something the City Lord's mansion has, we will definitely not refuse. Yang Han's expression was serious. This matter had undoubtedly solved a big problem for them, so no matter what it was, they would not go overboard. Everyone smiled, and Yang Qinxue even said, Hongzhuang, no need to be polite, just say it. City Lord Yang, I want to ask where you got the illusion form bead? Do you know where else to find it? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Hearing this question, Yang Han was also a little surprised. Didn't you just get the illusion form bead a few days ago? To tell you the truth, Beichin and I've contracted beasts are limited by some problems and are unable to transform into human form. One illusion form bead can only solve one of the problems. There is still one that cannot be solved. Hearing this, everyone understood and couldn't help but think of the two little cuties beside Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang on the night of the banquet. The black and white nimble little dumplings left a deep impression on everyone. You husband and wife are really interesting. Even your contracted beasts are a pair. Yang Qinxue smiled, then turned to look at Yang Han. Father, where did you get the illusion form bead? That illusory form bead was obtained from a secret realm. However, I did not enter that secret realm. It was just a gift from someone else. Yang Han said. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. With Mayor Yang Han's status, there were naturally many people who gave him gifts. The illusory form bead was relatively precious, but it was undoubtedly excellent as a gift. The return of the queen. The daughter of a rich family is reborn. Is it possible for the illusory bead to appear in the secret realm? Di Baichen asked. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's current forms were indeed quite good, but they were still missing an illusory form pearl. If they could find it, it would undoubtedly be the best. I have never asked this question. When I return, I will help you ask around. If he still has more illusion form beads, I will directly buy them. Yang Han said with a smile. Many thanks, City Lord Yang. Di Baichen cupped his hands. Yang Han waved his hand. This is just a small matter. You have helped me so much, but this small matter is unable to repay you. City Lord Yang does not need to be so polite. We are already friends with young Master Yang, so it is naturally not worth mentioning. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. In her heart, friends were different from ordinary people. Healing a friend was what she should do, so why would she need to think about this? Chapter 67:23. Everyone had always thought that it was Yang Lingfeng's mental illness, but who would have thought that it was actually because of this? If we had met Hong Zhuang a few years earlier, Lingfeng wouldn't have had to suffer such a blow, Yang Qinxue joked. In the past, this matter had always been a pain in Lingfeng's heart, so none of them dared to mention it, fearing that it would make Lingfeng feel inferior. But now it was all better. It was only because he was poisoned, and it had nothing to do with him. Hong Zhuang, thank you, Yang Lingfeng said with a serious expression. This problem had troubled him for so many years, and even his personality had become more and more eccentric. Fortunately, he had met her. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and waved her hand. No need to be so polite. I'm also happy that you have recovered. Miss Bailey, you have helped us greatly this time. I have already said before that no matter what the reward is, as long as it is something that the City Lord's mansion has, we will definitely not refuse. Yang Han's expression was serious. This matter had undoubtedly solved a big problem for them, so no matter what it was, they would not go overboard. Everyone smiled, and Yang Qinxue said, Hong Zhuang, you don't have to be so polite, just say it. City Lord Yang, I want to ask where you obtained the illusion form bead. Do you know where to find it? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Hearing this question, Yang Han was a little surprised. Didn't you just get the illusion form bead a few days ago? To tell you the truth, Baichen and I've contracted beasts are limited by some problems and are unable to take human form. One illusion form bead can only solve one of the problems. There is still one that cannot be solved. Hearing this, everyone understood, and they couldn't help but think of the two little cuties beside Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang on the night of the banquet. The black and white nimble little dumplings left a deep impression on everyone. You husband and wife are really interesting. Even your contracted beasts are a pair. Yang Qinxue smiled, then turned to look at Yang Han. Father, where did you get the illusion form bead? That illusory form bead was obtained from a secret realm. However, I did not enter that secret realm. It was just a gift from someone else. Yang Han said. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. With Mayor Yang Han's status, there were naturally many people who gave him gifts. The illusory form bead was relatively precious, but it was undoubtedly excellent as a gift. Is it possible for the illusory bead to appear in the secret realm? Di Baichen asked. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's current forms were indeed quite good, but they were still missing an illusory form pearl. If they could find it, it would undoubtedly be the best. I have never asked this question before. When I return, I will help you ask around. If he still has more illusory form beads, I will directly buy them, Yang Han said with a smile. Many thanks, City Lord Yang. Di Baichen cupped his hands. Yang Han waved his hand. This is just a small matter. You have helped me so much, but this small matter is unable to repay you. City Lord Yang does not need to be so polite. We are already friends with young Master Yang, so it is naturally not worth mentioning. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. In her heart, friends were different from ordinary people. Healing a friend was what she should do, so why would she need to think about this? Chapter 67:24. Yang Han chuckled. You've seen it too. If I don't thank you properly, I'm afraid my daughter will despise me. Yang Han took out a Cosmos pouch and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. Here are the cultivation resources you youngsters need. I can see that your talents are extraordinary. I'm sure you'll be able to break through to the elementary immortal stage. These cultivation resources will help you break through. Apart from that, this is the City Lord's Estates Medallion. If you come to Qingyang City in the future, this will be convenient for you too. Looking at the token Yang Han handed over, Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated for a moment before accepting it. Many thanks, Lord Yang. She understood the value of the medallion. It was even more precious than the cultivation resources. Once they arrived at Qingyang City, the effects of the medallion could be imagined. Although they didn't know what kind of secret realm they had gone to, if there was hope, they would very likely take a look. Naturally, the medallion would come in handy. Bai Ziyuan was rather surprised when he saw Yang Han give the medallion to Bailey Hongzhuang. However, he understood the value of the two of them, so it wasn't excessive. Yang Qinxue finally showed a satisfied expression. That's more like it. If the city lord was too stingy, no one would be able to stand it. Bailey Hongzhuang took her leave after writing down the prescription. Yang Lingfeng would probably need at least 3 days to recover from his weakened state. Yang Han also said that he would clarify the situation as soon as possible and tell them the news, so they only needed to wait patiently. After returning to their residence, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the cultivation resources Yang Han had given them. She was rather surprised. City Lord Yang is really generous. He actually gave us so many things. These cultivation resources were even more abundant than the rewards they had received from the monster slaughter competition. Deep Beichun smiled faintly. Yang Lingfeng is City Lord Yang's only son. You saved his life, so City Lord Yang is naturally very grateful. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Even if it were her, there was nothing more important than the life of a family member. With these cultivation resources, I think we can go into seclusion for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and smiled faintly. The Brilliant Sun Realm was a process of accumulation. It required the cultivator to constantly accumulate spirit power until one day they had a clear idea of what was going on. Only then would there be a possibility of a breakthrough. According to Gong Jun, many cultivators have been stuck in this realm for decades, or even centuries. Although the people in the immortal realm of chaos looked young, they were actually hundreds of years old. It was only because they had cultivated to this level that their lifespans were much longer. That was why it was hard to tell. It was said that after breaking through to the elementary immortal stage, one would look even younger. At their age, they were definitely very young in the serene Cloud City. Fortunately, at this point in time, no one would ask each other's age. Cultivation was the most important thing. Lifespan would increase as one's strength increased, so it was meaningless to ask. Because of that, Glorious Sun Realm cultivators would frequently enter secluded cultivation. Once they entered secluded cultivation, they would stay in secluded cultivation for a long time. Everyone was hoping to break through to the elementary celestial realm one day. That was a completely different realm. Once one broke through, one could be called an immortal. Chapter 6725. Di Beichen also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had always been interested in this field, but because she had to detoxify Yang Lingfeng, she spent all her time on it. Now that this problem had been solved, she naturally had time to study the things she was interested in. These demon crystals are useless to everyone, so they are all here for you to study. Di Beichun placed the Qinquan pouch beside Bailey Hongzhuang, his handsome face rippling with a faint smile. Thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the Qinquan pouch. The number of demon crystals inside was very plentiful. Although there were quite a few monsters in Xi'an City, the price of demon crystals wasn't cheap because everyone knew that it had a good effect for alchemists, so they just sat there and raised the price. Wife, you can refine pills in the room. I heard from Gong Jun that there's an exchange of array masters in the city today. I plan to go take a look. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay, since she had learned this craft, she naturally needed to interact with others. Di Beichun was not only good at array techniques, but he was also good at talisman techniques. Presumably, she had also interacted with some alchemists, but Di Beichun had never interacted with anyone before. It was indeed time for her to go out and interact with others. Then you should pay attention. It's just a small exchange. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Now that they had some status in Xi'an City, the possibility of trouble was not high. Moreover, Gong Jun was there. This guy had always been tactful in dealing with people, so naturally there was no need to worry. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were also interested in the exchange of array masters, so they followed Di Beichun to have some fun. Bailey Hongzhuang began to study the method of refining demon crystals. Although there were already people who had successfully used this method to increase the efficacy of pills, it was not always successful. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't try it out rashly. Instead, she followed Apothecary Wei's instructions to refine a successful pill. Recovery pill. This was a basic pill formula that cultivators often used. Although it was relatively simple to refine, it had always been highly recommended because of its high demand. It was said that before this, someone had successfully added the demon crystal into the vitality recovery pill, and the effect of the pill refined was much better than usual. Bailey Hongzhuang just so happened to have a lot of medicinal ingredients for the vitality recovery pill in her hands, so she began to act. How to refine a demon crystal was undoubtedly the most difficult problem for an alchemist. The outer layer of the crystal-like shell gradually began to melt under the heat of the alchemy fire, and the bright red liquid inside flowed out. Bailey Hongzhuang controlled the alchemy fire and carefully sensed the situation in the alchemy furnace with her spiritual power. Sure enough, just as everyone had said, there was a trace of dark force and murderous qi in the demon crystal. If she wanted to use this thing in medicine, she must eliminate these two forces. Only by turning them into the purest force could she safely refine the pill. Bailey Hongzhuang tried to refine the dark force and murderous qi, but found that it was not an easy task. These two forces seemed to be dependent on each other and were difficult to separate. Although there was a tendency to gradually decrease with the refining of the alchemy fire, the volume of the liquid in the demon crystal was also constantly decreasing. Chapter 6726. Almost immediately, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that this would not work. Once she did this, there would be too little essence left. It would be a complete waste. After spending so much effort, if there was only so little left in the end, it would not be worth it. No wonder so many pharmacists were unable to successfully develop it. So this is the biggest difficulty. Bailey Hongzhuang understood. It seemed that she had to think of another way. The dark energy in her body gradually appeared. Bailey Hongzhuang tried to directly absorb the dark energy in the demon crystal. The result was out of her expectations. This was because the dark energy was easily absorbed. Not only that, she found that this dark energy was especially pure. It was purer than the energy that she usually absorbed. It was really interesting. I did not expect the dark energy in the demon crystal to be so pure and condensed. Absorbing it is actually very beneficial. Although the demon crystal was still filled with a murderous aura, after the dark energy disappeared, it seemed to have lost its support. Refining it was much easier than before. Bailey Hongzhuang was pleasantly surprised. She did not expect that the problem that everyone thought to be so difficult to solve would be solved so easily. Thinking about it, it would be easier for any pharmacist with the dark attribute to refine the demon crystal. However, it would be much more difficult for pharmacists with other attributes to refine it. After she removed all the impurities in the demon crystal, the bright red liquid looked like a crystal clear ruby. It was very beautiful. She took out the essence and began to refine the pill. According to Pharmacist Wei, the demon crystal was to be added at the last step of refining the pill. However, she had to pay attention to the timing. Because everyone did not have much experience on this point, they had to rely on trial and error. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang could only try it herself. Whether it was the timing or the amount, she had to slowly figure it out. Chila, Bailey Hongzhuang had only just put the demon crystal in for a moment. The pill was directly destroyed and could no longer be condensed. Seeing this, she did not care. She did not expect to succeed immediately. She immediately removed the impurities in the pill furnace and began refining again. Chila, failure after failure. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She began to record the amount and time of the changes in the demon crystal essence. In the beginning, Other than failure, there was almost no change. However, as time went by, she gradually discovered some clues. The time of failure would be different, and the dregs of the failed pills would also be different. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She understood that this was a research that required ample time. Fortunately, she still had time now, so there was no need to rush. Once she succeeded, the effects of the pills in the future would be even more effective. That would really be the best thing that could happen. At that time, she could tell Granny Hua about her new results. Time flew by quickly as they focused on refining pills. Bailey Hongzhuang had just recorded the results of the previous batch of pills and was about to continue refining when she saw Xiao He walking back. This little baby was originally very cute, but now that he was angry, he actually looked very naive. Chapter 67:27. Bailey Hongzhuang carried Xiao He in her arms. Her chubby little face was filled with resentment. She reached out and poked Xiao He in a fit of pique and asked, "What happened?" "Master." Xiao He tugged at the woman's hand coquettishly. That exchange between the array masters just now was simply too infuriating. Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows. She had thought that this was just a simple exchange and that there shouldn't be any problems. However, from the looks of it, this exchange seemed to have caused a disturbance as well. Ever since the male master had left, there was an extremely young-looking fellow in there who had acted as if nothing was wrong with his eyes or his nose. His words were always directed at him. I don't know who this fellow is either. Everyone else was also siding with this fellow. They were so flattering that it was as if they wished that they could follow behind him and carry his shoes. However, the male master was able to keep his cool and wasn't angry at all. However, when I saw that man's arrogant and complacent look, I couldn't stand it any longer. Then what happened after that? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression turned cold. She had never heard of the array masters in the city before. However, since this person had been able to garner so much flattery from so many array masters, he must either have an extraordinary status or his array skills were exceptional. Since he looked so young, and yet he was able to garner so much respect from so many people, there must be a reason for that. I don't know what happened after that either. However, the atmosphere at the time was simply too infuriating. Xiaobai and I wanted to throw a tantrum, but the male master held us back. After that, we returned home. Xiao He looked gloomy. Actually, I wanted to continue staying there. I don't know if that fellow would do something even more outrageous. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was a little unhappy, but she was not worried. Since Beichun was willing to continue staying there, he must have his reasons. Regardless of the other party's identity, since this was Xi'an City, there was no need to worry about his safety for now. We will know when Beichun returns. Bailey Hongzhuang patted Xiao He's head and said, "You have to change your impatient personality. Sometimes, you have to be patient so that you won't be taken advantage of." "Master, that guy was too much." He spoke as if the male master didn't know anything about formations. Even Gong Jun was ridiculed. If that's the case, I'm afraid that this person is truly capable. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. If the other party only had a noble status, then after knowing the influence of Beichun's array stone in Xi'an City, it was impossible for him to speak so arrogantly. Therefore, to be able to do this under such circumstances, it proved that this person was most likely a very powerful array master. That's not the real deal. Little Black curled his lips. Look at his arrogant face. It's inevitable for cultivators from other professions to be a little arrogant. This person has always been flattered by others. It's normal for him to have such a temper. Bailey Hongzhuang raised the corners of her lips. I think he must have heard that Beichun's array stone is selling extremely well and feels that it has affected his prestige. That's why he's deliberately targeting him. It was impossible for someone to target someone for no reason. Every seemingly inexplicable situation had a reason behind it. Only mediocre people are not envied. Chapter 67:28. Now that she thought about it carefully, what her master had said was true. If the male master was not capable, he would be ignored at such an event. However, this person had been picking on her ever since the male master had appeared. The problem was very clear. "Master, now that you've said that, I'm not so angry anymore. Xiaohei smiled and played with her little braids. The gloominess on her face had disappeared. Oh, you. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head helplessly. Don't be so impatient when you encounter such things. We've encountered many things along the way, so we've gradually calmed down. Oh, Xiaohei dragged her words. Actually, she understood this point as well. However, she had always been a person who abhorred evil. After so many years, it had been deeply ingrained in her, and it was very difficult for her to change. She already had an adorable little face. Now that she had an aggrieved look on her face, anyone who looked at her would feel sorry for her. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but soften her tone when she spoke. Forget it, forget it. Who asked you to be such an adorable little fellow? As long as you're happy. Hearing her master's doting words, Xiaohei's eyes filled with joy. Master, I knew that you're the best. Good girl. Not long after Xiaohei had returned, Di Beichun and Gong Jun's figures appeared in the courtyard. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked out of the house. You're back. Di Beichun was a little surprised when he saw that the woman had taken the initiative to welcome them. Usually, whenever Hongzhuang went into closed-door cultivation to refine pills, she would enter a state where she would forget to eat and sleep. If she did not complete her research, she would not come out for the time being. However, when he saw Xiaohei next to her, he understood what was going on. I heard from Xiaohei that your participation in the Formation Masters exchange this time did not go well. Bailey Hongzhuang asked gently. It's all right. Di Beichun smiled faintly. Gong Jun, who was standing to one side, could not help but say, Madam, that's because you didn't go. You don't know how infuriating that fellow's words were. He speaks so arrogantly as if he's a grandmaster. What a joke. Gong Jun, Di Beichun looked at the gloomy fellow with a serious expression. Gong Jun could not help but shut his mouth, but the gloominess on his face. Bailey Hongzhuang is... Madam, you really have a divine foresight. How did you even guess that? Gong Jun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. His appearance was simply like prostrating himself on the ground. If he did not have such a reputation, he would not have taken the initiative to cause trouble for you in front of so many people. Bailey Hongzhuang looked calm. Ever since the news of her saving by Qingli spread, everyone knew about their relationship with the City Lord's mansion. If they did not have a certain background, who would not give face to the City Lord's mansion? Shun Duanyu is a formation master who has been in the limelight in recent years. He is extremely famous in the chaotic immortal realm. Countless people fight to buy the formation stones he makes. Although Shun Duanyu's age isn't considered old, his position among array masters is top-notch. Although Gong Jun did not want to praise this arrogant fellow, he still had to speak from the facts. Chapter 67-29. In the area of array stones, any shop that has Shun Duanyu's array stones is equivalent to having an additional golden signboard. Previously, I tried to find a way to get in touch with him in hopes of buying his array stones at a high price. In this way, at least in the area of array stones, I can surpass Wanbao Pavilion. However, this guy is really too arrogant. I've asked people to see him several times, but to no avail. Every day, he says how busy he is, but I can't even see his shadow. This time, his appearance in Shiyun City is really surprising, so I wanted to take a look. Speaking up to here, Gong Jun's anger had nowhere to vent. If I knew this guy's temper was like this, I wouldn't have begged him. His words are simply infuriating. Most importantly, the people around this guy still remember that I went to see him. So he used it against me. It's fine if he humiliated me, but he even humiliated boss. This is too much. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. If it wasn't for the incident with Gong Jun, the other party wouldn't have been able to find Beichun in such a short time. Coincidentally, with this incident, Beichun became the substitute they found when they couldn't find him. Naturally, this sense of superiority came. What did he say after that? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichun. You only passively provoked by the other party and didn't fight back. This doesn't fit your personality. Looking at the girl's lively appearance, Di Beichun's smile gradually widened. His smile was also filled with doting. No one knows me better than my wife. How did you do it? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Even though she knew that Beichen wouldn't be bullied by the other party like this, she was still curious about how he did it. I heard that they were discussing the layering method of trapping arrays. There was one point that they couldn't figure out. As a newcomer, I conveniently gave him some pointers. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. So, you deliberately watched him humiliate you? Isn't this better? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Indeed. Just a second ago, the other party had been lecturing Beichen about his lack of knowledge about formations, and in the next moment, Beichen had used his true ability to show him what a true formation was. This was a resounding slap to the face. Madam, you didn't see Shan Duanyu's expression at that time. It was too wonderful. Gong Jun couldn't help but laugh. Even when I think about it now, I still find it very funny. Haha. Xiao Hei's face turned gloomy when she heard the story. There's still something so interesting after that. I actually left first and didn't even see it. What a waste. That's why I told you to calm down first. If you had stirred up trouble then, there wouldn't have been such a good show later. Gong Jun patted Xiao Hei's head with a smug look on his face. Xiao Hei slapped Gong Jun's hand. Take your salty pig trotters away. My head isn't something that just anyone can touch. Little girl, you're so soft and small, but your temper is quite big. You're so cute, so I just like to pat your head. What do you think? Gong Jun had a roguish look on his face. In the past, when Xiao Hei was angry, it was very interesting. Now that she was a little girl, her angry look was even more interesting. Chapter 67:30. Just when Bailey Hongzhuang thought the matter was over, she suddenly heard Di Beichen say, "There will be a Formation Master competition in 3 months." A Formation Master competition? That's right. Di Beichen nodded. It is said that there will be Formation Masters from every city. Are you going to participate? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Di Beichen hadn't interacted with many people since he started learning Formation Masters. Participating in such a competition would allow him to know his own level better. On the other hand, if he performed well, he could get to know some skilled seniors and be enlightened by them. Isn't it because of Shin Duanyu? After Boss gave him advice, he felt embarrassed, so he brought up the Formation Master competition. He said that he would participate if he could. He wanted to use this competition to let Boss know the gap between them. Under such circumstances, a man can't admit defeat, let alone my boss. Gong Jun said with righteous indignation. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She didn't care too much about it. It is good to participate in a trade competition. However, there will be Formation Masters from every city. I think the scale of this Formation Master competition will be amazing. I think so. Di Beichen thought for a while and said, this should be a very important competition. Otherwise, Shin Duanyu wouldn't care so much about it. Boss, madam, you don't know about this. The Formation Master competition is a big event held every 10 years in the realm of chaos. Actually, this competition originated from the realm of chaos. The realm of chaos holds a Formation Master competition every 20 years. Gradually, the realm of chaos developed. The cultivators of the chaotic immortal realm were extremely powerful. Even the Formation Master's strength was shocking. In order to shorten the gap between the chaotic immortal realm and the immortal realm, the chaotic immortal realm changed the time limit to once every 10 years. Every time the Formation Master competition is held, many Formation Masters will improve. Over the years, the realm of chaos has done very well. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen understood. If there was such a meaning behind it, then the scale of the Array Formation Master competition was indeed not ordinary. It said that the number of Array Masters that can participate in each city is limited. Boss hasn't mentioned this before. If we want to participate, I'm afraid we'll have to hurry up and greet them. Otherwise, once the quota is confirmed, it will be very difficult for Master to obtain the qualifications to participate. A trace of anxiety appeared on Gong Jun's face. Although he didn't know much about this array formation, he believed that his boss's array formation skills wouldn't be worse than that arrogant guy. If they lost fair and square, it would be fine, but if they didn't participate, the other party would definitely think of ways to ridicule them, saying that they didn't even have the guts to participate. That would be truly depressing. Madam, You have such a good relationship with the city lord's mansion. Why don't you go and ask? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She didn't think that they would disagree so much just to get a spot in the competition. I'll ask him later. Wife, there's no need to be so anxious, Di Beichen said. That won't do. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. This is your first time participating in the Formation Master competition. No matter what, you have to find a way to get a spot. Chapter 6731. When Bai Ziyuan and the others saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had arrived, their faces were filled with surprise. They had just left in the afternoon and had returned in the evening. There must be something going on. Hongzhuang, what's the matter? Bai Qingli had also guessed this and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said frankly, I've come here to ask for your help. If you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to be so polite. As long as it's something we can help with, we definitely won't refuse. Bai Qingli waved her hand with a magnanimous look on her face. At this time, Di Beichen also spoke up. I heard that the Array Master competition will be held in 3 months, so I'd like to ask for a place to participate. Hearing this, a strange look appeared on the faces of Bai Qingli and the others. They didn't expect it to be such a matter. However, when they thought about how Di Beichen's array stones were selling like hotcakes in the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, everyone understood what was going on. Our city's 3 places seemed to have been confirmed. Bai Qingli frowned. Because this was a competition that was held once every 10 years, they had always attached great importance to it. Therefore, a few days ago, the people representing Shiyun City had already been confirmed. Father, is there any place that can be changed? Bai Qingli turned to look at Bai Qingli. Since Di Beichen wanted to participate in this competition, no matter what, they had to give up a place. Bai Ziyuan's face also revealed a trace of difficulty. The places for this competition had long been confirmed. If they were to change it at this juncture, it would inevitably cause displeasure in the hearts of others. The strength of their Shiyun City's array masters was considered to be not bad. Although they couldn't achieve the best results, as long as they could occupy the middle of the rankings, it would be a point of glory and they could even obtain a lot of rewards. If they were to change to another person, Di Beichen was ultimately too young. I'll think of a way to change someone, don't worry. Even though he had some considerations in his heart, Bai Ziyuan's attitude was still very firm. No matter what, he had to make room for Di Beichen. Looking at Bai Ziyuan's face that flashed with tangled thoughts, how could Di Beichen not understand how difficult it was to allocate a quota? Even if Bai Ziyuan didn't say anything, there would still be trouble when they returned. He didn't want to make things too difficult for them. City Lord Bai, if it's too troublesome, then forget about it. Di Beichen's expression was indifferent. After all, this matter had been determined a long time ago. He rashly asked them to change it, which was forcing them to do. Bai Ziyuan waved his hand. You've helped us so much. How can you not handle such a small matter? At this moment, Yang Han smiled and said, Brother Bai, there's no need for you to be so busy. Young Master Di, it just happens that our Qingyang City still has a spot. I wonder if you're willing to fight as a formation master of our Qingyang City? Brother Yang, this? Bai Ziyuan looked at Yang Han in confusion. The level of our Qingyang City's formation masters can't compare to yours. Look, we only managed to invite a formation master to fight in our place after promising rewards with great difficulty. However, we never thought that he would be poached away by another city in the end. This is simply infuriating. We're still missing a spot. I was just thinking about who to find, and it just so happens that young Master D plans on participating. This is basically specially prepared for our Qingyang City. Chapter 6732. Young Master D, what do you think? Yang Han looked at Di Beichen seriously. However, I have to say this first. Our Qingyang City's strength belongs to the periphery of the entire realm of chaotic immortals, and we are even weaker in the field of formations. If you are willing to participate as a formation master of Qingyang City, I'm afraid you will inevitably be laughed at. Speaking of this, Yang Han and Yang Qinshue's faces revealed a trace of helplessness. They had already tried their best to change this matter, but they were too weak in this aspect. Although they could also spend a lot of money to invite formation masters, most formation masters with status were not willing to join them at all. As for some formation masters who were not strong enough, they would have no impact on the results of the competition. It was not worthwhile to spend so much effort on them. Under such circumstances, they could only leave it to fate. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other, and there was a trace of a smile in their eyes. "Thank you, City Lord Yang." Di Beichen cupped his hands with a smile on his face. He had met very few formation masters since he started learning formation masters, but he vaguely understood that he had learned from Senior Huangfu for so long, so his level should be decent. If he took up a spot as a formation master with strong formation masters, he would inevitably feel a little guilty, but it just so happened that Qingyang City's environment was suitable for him, so he did not need to feel too much pressure. Seeing Di Beichen agree, Yang Han also smiled and joked, "You can't run away halfway, otherwise I really won't be able to find a formation master in such a short time." Di Beichen smiled faintly. "City Lord Yang, don't worry, I will definitely participate. May I know young Master Di's grade as a formation master?" Yang Qinxue asked curiously. She originally only knew that Hong Zhuang's alchemy skills were excellent, but she never thought that Di Beichen's formation masters were also very good. The two of them were really a match made in heaven. "I haven't taken a grade test yet." As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned. Originally, when Di Beichen suddenly said that he wanted to participate in the competition, everyone thought that his array skills were pretty good. Who would have thought that he didn't even pass the level test? We haven't been in the realm of chaotic immortals for long. Originally, we were going to take the test. However, there is no place in the city for the test. Therefore, we have been delayed, Bailey Hongzhuang explained. Everyone was enlightened. It was normal that they hadn't gone through any tests since they had just arrived in the chaotic immortal realm. However, this also proved that they hadn't been in the immortal realm for long. So, his formation skills, even though their hearts were filled with doubts, no one said anything. Yang Han was also very indifferent. Compared to Yang Lingfeng's illness, this quota was nothing. It was just a small matter. In any case, every time Qingyang City participated in this competition, there would be such a scene. He was already accustomed to it, but it was inevitable that Di Beichen would be looked down upon by everyone. However, he felt that Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang weren't people who would be easily defeated by words. Presumably, this matter wouldn't affect them too much. After Di Beichen thanked them, he left with Bailey Hongzhuang. They could see that there were some doubts in everyone's hearts. However, under the current circumstances, they couldn't explain it in detail. After all, he himself hadn't taken the grade test. If he relied on his own words, it was obviously not enough. It was better to wait until the day of the competition. Chapter 6733. Indeed, Di Beichen nodded. It wasn't that he didn't want to tell Yang Han and the others about his array master grade, but he had never been assessed for it. Although he knew that array stones were also divided into grades, the spirit arrays left behind by He Shanjun did not have their grades marked. When he was studying with Master Zhongli had never mentioned this point, so he had never thought about it. Since coming here, he understood that array techniques also had clear grades, but he wasn't clear about these grades. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally knew about Beichen's situation. In her opinion, whether it was He Shanjun or Zhongli Shaoran, their array techniques were extremely powerful. Grades were probably nothing in their eyes, so they didn't deliberately mention it to Beichen, so they still didn't know the grade of this array master. Originally, they thought that by participating in this array master exchange, they might be able to figure it out, but who would have thought that Shun Duanyu would target them at every turn? Now, it was obviously impossible to make friends with an array master and figure it out. After all, between an unknown array master and a rising star in the array world, anyone would choose the latter. Since we are participating as array masters of Qingyang City, I think we will have to go to Qingyang City soon. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I wonder where in Qingyang City, the sealed territory, where we can obtain the illusory form bead is. It just so happens that we are also going there. Ling Feng hasn't completely recovered yet, but City Lord Yang must be very fast at gathering information. It won't be long before you know. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang was still trying to use monster crystals to perform alchemy. With her usual level of alchemy, the rate of failure was really terrifying. Master seems to have failed again. Xiao Hei shrunk her neck. These past few days, she had been smelling the scent of ruined pills. Even she felt that it was a waste. Xiao Bai glanced at Xiao Hei and said, "What do you mean, failed again? Mistress hasn't succeeded these past few days, all right? What kind of truth is that?" Xiao Hei's eyes widened, and she said, "No wonder they say that being an alchemist is a very expensive profession. Normally, master success rate in alchemy is extremely high, so I don't think so. But if it's an alchemist with a higher failure rate, then how many medicinal ingredients would be wasted?" Well, Gong Jun came again yesterday to deliver the herbs. Di Beichun looked at the two little fellows who were muttering and lamenting at the side. He immediately rubbed their little heads. Hong Zhuang is doing research, so it's inevitable that there will be waste. The two of you are quite free now, and your cultivation has also become undisciplined. The two little ones immediately revealed a guilty expression. Ever since they transformed into their human forms, although they did not accept this form, they had to admit that there were many people who liked them. Now, even if they were halfway to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, there would still be people sending them delicious food. Suddenly, they felt that it was not a bad idea to swindle people like this for the time being. "Let's go cultivate now." In the next moment, the two little balls disappeared in an instant. Di Beichun laughed involuntarily. As expected, as long as the two little fellows were around, they would be especially noisy. He glanced again at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was continuing to perform alchemy. Only then did he feel at ease and walk to a nearby place to continue studying array techniques. Chapter 6734. The Governor's Residence. Father, young Master D, doesn't even have a formation master's grade. If he participates in the competition, I'm afraid he'll be laughed at even more, right? A trace of helplessness appeared on Yang Qinshue's face. She was indeed willing to let Di Beichun participate in the competition, but it was inevitable that they would encounter formation masters from other cities on the way. Every formation master had their own grade hanging in front of their chest. If Di Beichun's grade was empty, they, who were already being ridiculed, would probably become a joke. Over the years, we've become accustomed to all kinds of comments. Speaking of which, the more troublesome ones are the few cities that are usually quite competitive with each other. When the time comes, we just have to ignore them. After all, in terms of formation masters, we're indeed no match for them. Yang Han looked very indifferent. After experiencing so many times, he was already used to it. Although Beichun did not have a grade, and it was inevitable that the ridicule would be louder, he was not worried about himself. He was only worried about whether this would have a great impact on Beichun. After all, no matter how indifferent one was, the feeling of being ridiculed by others was not something that ordinary people could stand. "Sai, I heard that Beichun's formation stones are selling very well in Xi'an City. I'm sure his formation skills are quite good." Yang Qinshu sighed, but her voice was inevitably filled with some discouragement. The Formation Master competition was the competition that she did not want to hold the most. Every time it was about to start, she would feel a headache. To put it bluntly, everyone was not optimistic about Di Beichun's formation skills. This was because a cultivator who had just ascended, no matter how talented he was, would definitely need to study for a while. However, Hong Zhuang had only been here for a short period of time, and her medical skills were still so outstanding, so they left a trace of hope for her. Half a month later, after countless attempts, Bailey Hongzhuang had also successfully refined the medicinal pill. After checking, she found that the medicinal pill's effects had indeed improved by quite a bit after adding the demon crystals. After her first success, her success rate gradually began to increase. Now, her progress was considered quite good. "Hongzhuang, we need to pack up and get ready to go to Qingyang City." Di Beichun walked into the room and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was focused on her research, and reminded her. "Okay." Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and smiled. She put away the cauldron, changed her clothes, and left the room with Beichun. "Boss, I'll go with you." Gong Jun was a bit anxious. He wanted to go with his boss. "The Immortal Treasure Pavilion's business is so good now. You won't be able to leave anytime soon, so you don't have to follow us. We're only going to participate in the competition, and we'll return when it's over." Hearing this, Gong Jun felt a bit depressed. However, the Celestial Treasure Pavilion was indeed rapidly developing, and the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion was being suppressed by him. If he left at this time, the Wanbao Pavilion might do something. Maybe when he returned, the situation would have completely changed. Boss, madam, be careful this time. Don't worry. After saying goodbye to Gong Jun, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun went to the city leader's palace. Xiao He and Xiao Bai turned into their beast forms and sat on their master's shoulders for the sake of convenience. Di Xiaofeng and the others already knew that they were going to participate in the Formation Master competition. After learning about it, they all went into seclusion in Shiyun City. Chapter 6735. When the two of them arrived at the city governor's mansion, Yang Han and the others were about to bid farewell to Bai Ziyuan and the others. Brother Bai, let's meet at the Array Master competition. Okay, have a safe trip. The two of them didn't exchange pleasantries. After all, they often met each other. In addition, the distance between the two cities wasn't far. Basically, they would see each other soon. Therefore, they didn't exchange pleasantries with each other and became more casual. It was obvious that Yang Lingfeng's body had recovered. His face was ruddy, and he didn't look weak at all. The thing that made him the happiest was that his problem had been solved. Although the poison had been cured, his heart was still beating like a drum. If the poison was detoxified and this problem still didn't get better, then it would be really terrible. Fortunately, such a thing didn't happen. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. He was right to come here this time. Di Beichen and Yang Lingfeng also bid farewell to Bai Ziyuan and the others. Then, they got into City Governor Yang's carriage. City Governor Yang's carriage was very spacious. Perhaps to avoid the two of them, City Governor Yang sat in the first carriage. Bailey Hongzhuang, Yang Lingfeng, and Yang Qinxue sat in the other carriage. There's only half a month left. Will we be able to make it to the competition venue? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little curious. Logically speaking, with so many cities participating in the competition, the location of the competition should be quite far away. However, she didn't know the exact location. The chaotic immortal realm holds a competition every once in a while. For convenience, the competition venue is a small world. Whenever there's a competition, everyone will go to the small world. Every city has a teleportation formation. Therefore, we only need to go there directly 3 days in advance, Yang Qinxue explained with a smile. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood. With a teleportation formation, everything would be much more convenient. Qinxue, are there many people who go to the Array Master competition every year? Although they knew about the competition now, they didn't know much about it. Yang Qinxue nodded slightly. The Array Master competition is a grand event that happens once every 10 years. Arrays have many uses on a daily basis, so there are many Array Masters. Although each city only had 3 places to participate, there would still be many Array Masters coming to learn more about array formations. This transportation array isn't sealed, and cultivators who are interested can also come along. You just need to pay a certain amount of blood spirit stones. Every time the Array Master competition is held, it will be very lively. Yang Lingfeng added, there will also be a bazaar at that time. The quality of the goods in this bazaar are usually quite good. Who knows, you might even be able to find some treasures. If you guys are interested, you can go and take a look. That's right. Although Ling Feng and I haven't had much luck in this aspect, almost every time a market is held, someone will find a treasure. It's very interesting. Yang Qinxue's interest was piqued when she mentioned this. Her eyes were filled with excitement. The treasures in this market are of such high quality. Bailey Hongzhuang was also surprised. She had visited many markets, but she had never seen a market in the chaotic immortal realm. Chapter 6736. Many of the things in this market come from various secret realms. Some of them even come from various planes, so there are many new and interesting things. Even for us, every time we go there, it's very novel because the things that appear are different every time. Yang Lingfeng smiled. Just by looking at Hong Zhuang's expression, he knew that she was very interested in this matter, so he didn't mind saying more. This market is very big. Some cultivators will casually set up stalls with the things they made or found. In this regard, It is very casual, but the control is also very strict, and no one is allowed to cause any trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was clear. Although fighting was common in the chaotic immortal domain, and in Xi'an City, it was common to see other people's heads bleeding, but in a place where order was needed, it would definitely not be chaotic. In addition, if you achieve good results in the Array Master competition, the rewards are also very generous. Yang Lingfeng continued to introduce, generally, the top 30 cultivators will be rewarded, and the top 30 cultivators after the top 10 will receive some secret books on Array Masters. The top 10 cultivators will not only receive secret books on Array Masters, but also a chance to go to the Enlightenment Tablet. Enlightenment Tablet? The Enlightenment Tablet is a very strange place. There is a very pure power of heaven and earth there. If the cultivators who go there have good luck, they can use this power of heaven and earth to comprehend a divine ability that is most suitable for them. Divine abilities are different from martial skills. They're the most suitable for the cultivator, and the effect is often very amazing. Speaking of this, a trace of yearning appeared in Yang Lingfeng's eyes. The Enlightenment Tablet is a place that many people dream of. However, it is very difficult to get into the top 10. The number of cities in the chaotic immortal realm is very shocking. Needless to say, the number of Array Masters who participate in the competition is very high. Not to mention the top 30 cultivators in our Qingyang city, we haven't even entered the top 100. So, this is just hearsay. Yang Qinshue's voice was full of helplessness. On the other hand, she was also reminding Di Beichen not to have too high expectations for the competition, because this matter had nothing to do with their Qingyang city at all. Thinking too much about it would only increase their envy. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yang Qinshue naturally understood the deeper meaning of Yang Qinshue's words. They immediately changed the topic and talked about other things. They chatted happily along the way. Qingyang City was located next to Xi'an City. When the group arrived, Bailey Hongzhuang saw the scene of Qingyang City through the window of the carriage. The liveliness of Qingyang City was similar to that of Xi'an City. It was just that the architectural style here was slightly different, and it seemed to have its own unique characteristics. The carriage stopped in front of the city lord's mansion. When Di Beichen appeared, many people in the city noticed them. Anyone who had a very close relationship with the city lord would naturally attract a lot of attention. I've already sent someone to prepare rooms for the two of you. Why don't you take a stroll around the mansion with Qin Shue and the others? You don't have to restrain yourselves. Why don't you return to your rooms to rest, or take a stroll around the city after dinner? Yang Han said with a smile. Many thanks, City Lord Yang.